Good morning, beautiful people. It is Tuesday, the 17th of September, 2024. Welcome to TDA, the day after your favorite news platform, and of course, the home of popular culture as defined by you guys, the culture. And of course, you're hosted by the best, but the best are not always here, but they're still here in spirit. Brent, what are you saying, man?
Morning.
How are you?
Blessed and highly favored, and yourself?
Yeah, thank God, man. I can't complain. I'm here, man.
Lovely.
Can't complain at all. How's the chat?
The chat is.
Are we early?
The chat is fine.
Okay.
You mentioned early. What's the time? Chat is fine. Good morning, Davina. Good morning, Imi Snow Globe. Good morning, Priz. Good morning, Dr. Amani. Good morning, Christy. Good morning, Ghana Greatness. Good morning, DCF Mooks. Good morning, Abby Abia.
Good morning, people. I'm interested. You know what? Since there's not that many people in the chat, I want to know how you guys heard about TDA, man. Because obviously, I think back in the day, in terms of when we first started, everyone kind of heard it from Me It's After 7, innit? Well, a lot of the people that I spoke to anyway. But I feel like now people are just hearing about it from random places. Like I spoke to somebody the other day who basically just said, oh, it just came up on the timeline. In fact, two people said that. Just came up on the timeline and just clicked it.
As in on X?
No, sorry, on YouTube.
All right, okay.
And then literally just clicked it and just stayed since. You know what I'm saying? So.
All right.
Yeah. In my head, I was just thinking, what would make somebody just be like, okay, cool. Let me just give this a try. You know what I'm saying? But obviously, it's a beautiful thing. Obviously, the algorithm was working at that particular moment, innit? But yeah, man, I just feel as though now people seem to be pulled in from different sources, man. It's a beautiful thing, man. So yeah, man, in the chat, I'd love to know, what brought you to TDA, man. But yes, Brent, how was your weekend, man? Obviously, I wasn't here yesterday.
My weekend was very busy, very productive.
We thank God.
These weekends of mine always seem to be these days.
Mm-hmm.
And how was yours?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, man. Working, all that sort of stuff. And obviously yesterday I couldn't come in because my little girl just started school, man. So obviously I wanted to be there to take her in and whatnot.
All right.
And stuff like that. Oh, you should see the map. Basically, yeah, they had to do it in such a way where they kind of staggered the entire class, innit? So I hear it, but I feel like the way they kind of group the people, as in the kids, into which group will start in the first week, the second week, third week, kind of didn't make sense, right? Because they did it by date of birth. And my understanding is you kind of stagger the class to kind of get those people who have not been used to being in a different environment from their homes, for a long period of time, i.e. from 9 to 5, right, in nursery, to kind of get used to it. So you kind of just let them do these half days and whatnot. But anyway, long story short, I say all of that just to say, when I've dropped her off now, and I've seen the line, you see all these young kids, everyone's kind of excited. There's one guy, I don't even know why I'm calling him a guy, but one white boy, yeah. When I say this guy didn't want to be there, you know how the greatest, I'm not even too sure of the position, but them rugby players, the American football players who are doing all of this sort of stuff, yeah? He was doing that, making teachers fall down, man. He was like, no, mommy. They've had to close the gate. And obviously his mum's there kind of embarrassed, but also just thinking, oh, no, I've left my son there, sort of thing. This is the biggest boy in the class, by the way. But obviously, I'm not trying to, send any shots or whatever. But that's just a side note. But I've just never seen someone feel like, I don't know, he was behaving like his life was in danger. You know what I'm saying? And in my head, and maybe this is a bit of the toxicity, yeah, that I'm working on, guys, obviously. I just thought if that was my son, I'd be a bit fix up, man. What type of nonsense is this? You know what I'm saying?
So wouldn't it have been your fault, though?
Exactly. 100% I agree.
Why would it have been your fault?
Because why am I not preparing my child?
Precisely.
You know what I'm saying?
It's your fault.
100%. It would 100% been my fault. And that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, obviously, this boy didn't go to nursery. You know what I'm saying? At least that's what I'm thinking anyway. And this was just the first time. I just left him there. And she said, I'm going to pick you up in 2.5 hours. I'll be back. And this guy is crying, red-faced, everything. And yeah, man, but...
Did you find out? Did you follow up?
No, I just saw him at the end when I've gone to pick up You know what I mean? Like I've just seen him come out with his mum holding hands, and he's all happy, man. So hopefully everything went well with, and he settled down and everything. But it was a crazy experience, man. He didn't want to be there at all, man. But yeah.
Suppose your daughter did that, what would you do?
Like that? Nah, I'd be like, no. I wouldn't be happy, to be honest with you.
Well, what would you do in, public place surrounded by people?
I mean, I just tell her to, calm down, don't worry. We'll be back soon. We're going to pick you up, that sort of thing. And eventually I'll turn around and walk away.
Is that the temperature or tone that you'd want to speak to her in? If there wasn't an audience, how would you speak to her?
Probably the same, to be fair. Because I want to calm her down, innit? I'm not trying to, be too firm with her. But, like, you know what I mean? I want to calm her down. I want her to enjoy her first day, man.
She got licks yet?
Not much, but yeah. 100%.
What does that look like?
Just a little, I'm trying to think what this may sound like in 10 years' time. This world is crazy. But let's just say the discipline has been there, man. You know what I mean? 100%. Because I believe in that. I believe if you don't discipline, don't get me wrong. I know some kids like just respond to just talking. At least parents think they do. But I feel like if you don't discipline your child, you don't love your child, man.
You said at least parents think they do. You don't believe parents when they say all they need to do is speak to their child?
No, not at a certain age. I don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule, but generally, we're not talking about the bloody exceptions. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Generally, kids are always going to try certain things. You know what I'm saying? And don't get me wrong, because even my one, she listens. You know what I'm saying? But there are some times when it's like, okay, cool. Maybe there's someone around. Maybe she wants to show off, or maybe she really wants that ice cream, or you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, no, I have to listen to what I'm saying. Otherwise, you know what I'm saying? So I get it. So yeah, of course, I know there are some good kids out there. And not even just good kids, just kids who are just, I guess, listen more. You know what I'm saying? Take it in a bit more. But yeah, man.
Do you
believe it's necessary.
Pinching is worse than slapping?
That's a good point, I never thought of pinching as bad as that. But pinching to me, anything that leaves marks and stuff, I don't like that sort of stuff. I don't really like that.
Because you don't want people to know that?
No, because it just, no, it's nothing to do. Like, the thing is with me, I don't care what anyone thinks. You know what I'm saying? At all, when it comes to my child.
You definitely do. You just pause when I ask you the question.
No, in terms of, like, what I do to my child, like, in terms of how I'm disciplining or what, you know what I'm saying? In terms of how it sounds, I'm just future-proofing. You know what I'm saying? But in terms of how I'm disciplining my child, because I know I love my child more than life itself. So I know I'm not going to do anything that's going to be crazy. And so, back to the whole pinching thing. That to me is a reminder that this hurt my child, you know what I'm saying? And I feel that's just too much. I don't want to be pinching.
More than life itself.
Yeah, 100%.
So suppose you had 5 children.
Yeah, I love them all equally.
More than life itself.
More than life. Just like how God loves us.
Yeah. So you would basically give up your life for one of them.
Yeah, of course.
And leave 4.
Yeah.
And leave 5 without like a father.
Yeah, but I believe
a provider.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but at the same time, I believe that I can protect them from the next realm, innit? I ain't going nowhere.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
The way your face went. No, honestly though, in my head I wouldn't be thinking.
I saw a video yesterday. Hold that thought in your head. Don't let it escape.
Yeah.
I saw a video yesterday on X, and the caption said, I can't remember, I don't know why it is I said the caption said, but basically a man was freeing a little doll, right? It was a black girl. The doll was a black girl. It's like, doll was yay big.
This big, guys.
Yay big. And it was by a riverside, buried under some dirt. And it had wool, red wool, like wrapped around it, like holding it into the earth.
Okay.
And the guy had a stunning life and he was cutting it. And I think the caption said, somebody is now freed from such and such. So when he finished cutting it, he didn't touch it. He just kind of flicked it with a knife. He flicked it in the river. And then he flicked the coin that was underneath it. And then something else, he flicked it. This is a river, and there's some bridge, on the ass end of nowhere.
Yeah, man. He's doing God's work, isn't it? Freeing people, isn't it?
Yeah. Bloody hell. Bloody hell. Like, it's
man.
so amazing. I'm curious enough to sit in on one of those sessions where this particular priest or priestess instructs this person, this is what you need to do in order to bind this person.
Yeah.
These specific details, I'm telling you, follow it to a T. And then I would love to basically observe it being done, right? And then afterwards, what happens to the person?
To the person, yeah.
You understand? Not because I'm going to be like, oh, wow, time to follow you. No, I'm like, oh, I've got this on video now.
But then, you having it on video, you actually just coming back home and just thinking, wait a minute. I've observed this over the space of a month. This person went to consult this person, given these instructions. They carried it out, and now this person's worse off in life. What are you thinking in your head?
I am thinking, wow, I know whose name to basically tell all my people that they're wicked and they're involved in spiritual wickedness. And I have the video to show you. And all these things you're hearing about Jackie, yeah, or Jerome, yeah, it's this person.
That's
so
crazy.
Jackie or Jerome would know who to flog. What did you think I was going to say? What? All right, seeing as you got power, I should follow you.
Hey, you never know.
Mad.
It's not even that necessarily. It's just more so because I feel like as much as people say, yeah, I believe that this power exists and whatever, it's like people don't allow it to register that it exists. And I feel like a lot of the time, the reason why these people consult these powers, right, is because they're in real need. And when somebody's faced with somebody saying to them, okay, I can help you with this, and they look at their situation, sometimes people go there.
Yeah, I'm aware.
You know what I'm saying? Well, a lot of the time, I think. A lot more people would go.
I am aware. You said that you had a possible next person to bring on.
Yes. I'm going to,
Yeah.
and make it happen. I think.
And you need to be in on that day because I want to see how it is that. Because I'm going to be posting some questions and I want to see how it is that you wiggle out of them.
No, it's not about me. It's about the person.
Yeah,
informing
it's
and
about the
educating
guest,
us.
100%.
Yeah,
performing.
Huh?
Did you say performing and educating
No,
us?
it's informing and educating us.
I don't know what you think they're coming to do in here.
To educate us on certain things.
Because apparently they don't entertain.
No, it's not.
And
It's
they
not
don't
entertainment.
perform. It only happens when people are not looking.
No, it's nothing like that. It's just more so because people. I think obviously we saw when we first brought this up. Some people will be scared and don't even want to be here that particular day.
Scared. You think it's just scared?
What do you
I
think,
know
then?
some people may be scared, right?
Yeah.
But people like Black Rob, he's not attending.
No, but he will
because
attend,
he's
though.
scared.
I think Black Rob. will
Black
attend.
Rob was one of the people who said that he's not turning up.
Oh, was it?
100%.
Oh,
because he
Black
knows
Robert,
what it
man.
is. Why are you flipping giving time to that type of stuff?
Because it's a
It's like a
conversation.
gateway.
Why can you have a conversation about other forms of evil? Why can you have a conversation about other forms of evil?
Who's you're talking to me?
No, Black Rob.
I can talk.
No, okay,
I
you
will,
yourself.
I
go.
will sit here and I will talk. Do you understand?
Exactly. So why
They
is
may
it that some people can't?
They may not want to look at me because they'll do the shimmy. But I will talk. But I don't know. In my mind, if you have peace of mind and whatnot, right? You're a peace of spirit. You don't willfully look to place yourself in certain positions.
But you're not it's not like you're going there to be like, you know, just messing around, see what they're like, having dinner with them. It's more so just, okay, somebody's come from a different belief system to just talk to you about what they do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, it's different than saying a Buddhist is coming true.
Why is it different?
Some people in their minds, like,
Yeah, but why though?
because the Buddhists don't run around saying that if it is that you come to me, I can give you instructions to go and hurt somebody else. It's the harming aspect of it, right? I was specific with the harming aspect of it.
But do you know the thing is? I think it's because what people don't understand, obviously, they fear, innit? And a lot of the time...
Why don't you be honest about like the stuff that you practice?
Only because I don't think people are ready for
They're
such.
ready.
No, they're
People,
not.
if you're ready, let us know by giving a thumbs up in the chat. If you're ready to see and hear Emmanuel and what he practices, right, as it pertains to African spirituality, please give a thumbs up in the chat. If you want a session where he breaks down the value he gets from practicing African spirituality, please give a thumbs up. We will make sure it happens next week or the week after, or when Imaya decides that he's going to be saying, yes, I'm in to basically do this particular thing. You know how many people want to know about this?
Black History Month.
No. You know how many people, you know how many people are dying to basically be able to say, yes, I'm a Christian, but I also practice African spirituality. They want you to be that flag bearer.
No, they just need to go home. And when you go back home, you see
but some of them don't know how to talk to people and use the language to convince them that this is what God wants. Do you understand? So it's up to you. It's incumbent on you to be that flag bearer, bro. You're not serving the people well. But can you see the thumbs up? Can you see the people talking? Do you understand? Educate us. Bring us into the light.
I need to see some black thumbs, no yellows and no other thumbs. Black thumbs.
I don't know why you're shaking, skirting all the time, man. Come on.
In due
Show
time.
us your final form.
In due time.
What does that mean?
It means at the right time when I see more of the black thumbs.
But the thumbs are there.
Well, today we have a different schedule, so obviously.
God damn it!
we
I'm
will
not saying
definitely
today.
happen.
I'm not saying today.
Okay, cool.
Because you need to be prepared. You need to bring your trinkets, your props and whatnot. You need to bring all of that stuff and let the world know who you are.
All right, cool.
No more hiding, man. All right then. I'm sure we will get a boost of numbers. Therefore, after, because your stuff works, right?
Oh, for sure.
You never used it to get us numbers before.
No, because
You've never used it for good.
to be fair, if you look at the TDA numbers, yeah, and organize it by popular, so you see the highest views, the whole top 5 I did it them days.
The top is the South African episodes.
Why do you think I won? I won.
Well, you didn't.
What?
You didn't.
What person defeated me in that conversation?
Debbie.
Any conversation.
Debbie.
Stop this. I have not been defeated.
Well, it's so funny how all of the gates, the majority of the gates, they belong to you. The majority of the gates belong to you. And the biggest gate, it was once Wingate. You know, that was a day. But you've trumped that several times over. And you're not even the person who comes in most. You're so efficient.
That is ridiculous.
You are so efficient.
I am here the second most.
You didn't dispute what I said. God damn it.
See how Brent listens. Brent can listen.
Toyin says, please announce before it occurs. Yep, she's another one.
Toyin, you scared?
She's not scared. She's not scared. She just doesn't want to basically have that in her ears and her eyes.
It's a damn shame.
I understand that, man. I understand that.
It's a damn shame.
I understand that. Anyway.
But yes.
Let's pop on into the
Let's get into our headlines, people. All right, people. First headline. This is pretty much like an economics one, to be fair, but this should interest everybody, man. But so yeah, let me just jump into it. Junior doctors have voted to accept a government pay deal worth a rise of 22.3% on average over 2 years. In a post on X, the BMA, the British Medical Association, wrote, "Junior doctors in England, thank you for voting in the referendum and making your voices heard. The votes are tallied and 65.97% of you voted to accept the government's offer." Which makes you think about the other 34.03%. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, the tweet goes on to say, your committee met this evening to ratify the result. We'll be in touch soon about what happens next 45,830 junior doctors in England took part in the online referendum between the 19th of August and the 15th of September with a turnout of 69%. The BMA Junior Doctors Committee's co-chairs, Dr. Robert Lawrenson and Dr. Vivek Trivedi, said it should never have taken so long to get here. One strike was one strike too many. This deal marks the end of 15 years of pay erosion with the beginning of 2 years of modest above inflation pay rises. There's still a long way to go. Which is interesting. I think I mentioned this when they first were discussing this, because one of my friends, obviously I mentioned it before on the show. In fact, I need to get her on the show. She's a doctor, and she was I said to her, "Oh, are you happy about this?" And at the time she was like, the media's painting it like, yeah, we're getting a 20-something% pay rise, but you have to look at how the pay has been eroded for the past decade. This isn't really a pay rise. You know what I'm saying? This is really just us getting what we should have been getting. And in fact, they still owe us another, I don't know, 3-4% for us to actually be in line with inflation and all the other conditions that's kind of eroded our pay over the years, man. But I guess it's still better than nothing. And Labour seem to have at least got it over the finish line, man. Next headline, and the police chief who oversaw the UK's enforcement of lockdown laws during the COVID-19 pandemic has been appointed the head of the government's new Border Security Command. Martin Hewitt, who's the former chairman of the National Police Chiefs Council, will be in charge of coordinating Sir Keir Starmer's plans to curb small boat crossings in the Channel and crack down on people smuggling gangs. The announcement comes ahead of the Prime Minister's visit to Rome, where he will meet with its Italian counterpart, Giorgia Meloni, as part of his wider bid to reset Britain's post-Brexit relationship with its European neighbours. Irregular migration will be at the top of the agenda, with the two leaders set to discuss the Italian government's approach to border control after the country saw a 60% drop in arrivals by sea over the past year. Sir Keir Starmer, who announced that he was axing the previous Tory administration's Rwanda deportation policy as one of his first moves in office, which obviously he did immediately, declared that there would be no more gimmicks to curb migration ahead of the visit. And the last headline, Sadiq Khan is back in the news, man, and he sparked outrage by suggesting that prisoners should be able to jump the queue for housing in order to prevent them reoffending. The Mayor of London said that irrespective a big shortage of housing in London, some prisoners ought to jump in a queue to get housing to avoid them reoffending again. This comes as the Labour government released 1,750 prisoners early on Tuesday as part of an early release scheme. Under the scheme, convicts are allowed out after just 40% of their sentence. The comments from the capital's mayor comes with the city in a housing crisis as homelessness spirals. 1 in 50 Londoners are homeless. 1 in 50. Mr. Khan said that he's calling for an honest conversation with our constituents about the reasons why people who have offended and come out of prison may need to jump in a queue to get housing to avoid them reoffending again.
1 in 50, are those stats real?
Boy, it's crazy, isn't it? But
How many people are in London? My goodness. And what are the implications of what he's saying?
This is it. This is the thing, man. Well, it just sounds like more just political talk. Because at the end of the day, he's partly responsible for the amount of homes that are being built, innit? So build, you know what I mean? Build more, like you should have been doing for how many years you've been in office now. And then maybe there'll be something there for these people. You know what I'm saying? But it just sounds like he's just talking. What about the people who have not reoffended? Sorry, who have not offended, period, who are leaving their parents' homes and want to start a life and feel like they should have, there should be ample homes out there to choose from. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem to bode well, to be fair. And I don't think he's looking at the economic implications of this at all. Because who's going to be funding all of this? But yeah, 1 in 50.
That would work out to be 190,000 people in London homeless.
Oh, by the way, as well, you have to make a distinction between those who are homeless and those who are sleeping rough. Because if I'm living with you, I'm homeless. That's technically the definition. Because I have no abode of my own in it.
Well, isn't he suggesting that as soon as it's come out, they realize that they don't have a home, so they want shelter and food, so they go and reoffend?
Yeah, it's just basically that's just part of the process. Like the frustration of not being able to have your own spot, your own place where you can go back to. Imagine I live here now and I'm always just in the way. I want my own space and I can't do certain things. Then I'm out. I may be going to chill with certain people I shouldn't be chilling with and stuff like that. So I think he's saying that's part of the process.
People are paid to find out this data and then give it to him for him to say stuff like this.
Yes. This is what happens, man. But I'll be honest with you though, Brent. As much as it sounds silly, I remember
Correlation.
there's a correlation, man. And I'll tell you why. I remember, obviously, I was saying on the show before, I used to work in the whole homelessness thing, innit? And I remember my manager said to me, anyone who's homeless, as in sleeping rough, has mental health problems. I looked at her and I thought, what are we doing there? Are you just trying to give me extra work? Why are you saying everyone who's on the street has mental health issues? It's only with time that I recognize there's a link. Because a lot of these people are not functioning mentally in the way normal people function, which leads them to either get there or stay there. You know what I'm saying? Granted, the mental health issues range in terms of the seriousness and the things that you can detect and whatnot. But there's a lot of truth there, man. I think I mentioned this story before about one guy that was helping to find a place, homeless. These people picked him up around like the City of London area, like Barbican sort of area. Sat down with him, talking to him, done everything I'm meant to do, found him a place. All this man had to do, Brent, is turn up. Take the keys, sign the paper. Or rather, sign the paper and take the keys. Everything was set. This man didn't turn up. Call him, yo, what's going on?
You called him?
Yeah.
So
he had the phone. It's funny you say that. I was walking past somebody yesterday, homeless guy outside the station. He was there on his phone, just there chilling. No, it was either like this or he was scrolling. Anyway, he's got a phone.
Was it a smartphone?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It wasn't like a S24, you know what I'm saying? Or
Is he just recently homeless then?
I don't know. He looked quite comfortable.
Homeless by choice?
I mean, I wouldn't say homeless by choice, but it didn't look like he's a newcomer. You know what I'm saying? He seemed to know what he was doing there, if that makes sense. Respectfully, of course.
Sometimes I wonder, like, when I have plenty money, like, I want to do something, like, proper, like, tangible for homelessness. Like, proper.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know yet what that would be. But, like, I have a heart for that.
Yeah.
But not the ones that try to get drugs and stuff.
But it's part of it though, right?
You think?
Unfortunately, yeah, I know.
So I should have a rehabilitation center.
That part has to, that part has to come with it. That's why I was mentioning the whole mental health thing, because with the questions that we ask, we always ask the question of drug abuse, alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Are you relying upon these things and all that sort of stuff? Because it's all linked, man, unfortunately. Obviously, not everyone gets there by that means, but to cope while they're there is another thing, man. But yeah, like I was saying, this guy, he got found again on the street a couple months later. I'm like, yo, what happened? He's like, the pressure just got to him. Just the fact that he thought, you know what, I have to turn up here and I'm now responsible for this studio flat. The bills, everything. Granted, he was going to get benefits, housing benefit and certain things, right? Council tax reduction and all that sort of stuff. But still, there's still something he has to do, that he has to respond to, letters, things of that nature. And to him, he just got overwhelmed. He just left it. And he went back to the street and just said to himself, I feel more comfortable with my friends on the street than being in a warm flat. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, mental health, you know what I'm saying?
Is there a way for us to look at it from a different angle and not impose our societal beliefs onto what agency and choice should lead you to do?
Yeah. That's a good point.
If at this stage in his life, him being placed in a home is going to cause him to freak out in a manner in which he might harm himself or those around him. I guess, as I'm saying that, I guess it's a journey, right? It's a process. So it will take a while to reconfigure his mind. And what does that look like? And how do people actually find out the method to get them whole again, quote unquote whole again? Like, how does that happen? Like, sometimes I ask myself, this Japanese dish that I'm eating right now, how did you basically stumble on this?
Yeah.
Do you understand? Because it's just perfect. The texture, the taste, right? The consistency of these things that have in my mouth, this sauce, it's just perfect. How do you stumble on this? Like, how?
But this is because we're forgetting that when a lot
Divine
of things,
intervention.
it depends on how, and it depends on what you consider divine intervention. Because a lot of time, I think people think divine intervention has to happen within a certain period of time, i.e., almost instantaneously, right? But I don't necessarily see it that way. That amazing Japanese dish could have been trial and error for 200 years,
You're just saying experimentation.
basically. It's the same reason why I say, I don't want to go into this, but the same thing I talk about the whole patriarchy, matriarchy stuff. People are not at one point in time just sitting down, a group of men just saying, let's decide this for society. It's time, loads of time that goes into the stuff, trial and error, and what's people deem to be the best for society.
What, in order to subjugate women?
That's not what it is. Just to get from A to B. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Or the best outcome, basically.
yeah, that's it. Gender roles is not because people think. This is why I mentioned the whole thing about the animal kingdom, because you see the same sort of thing there. You do. You know what I'm saying? Like, people. I'm telling you,
The way you keep on taking cues from the animals is bonkers.
We're
to me.
animals, Brent.
You're an animal.
Yes. All of us
I
are.
am not an animal. I'm sorry. God damn it. You know, we were given dominion over the animals. And you're calling yourself an animal.
In the same way a
No,
lion
sir.
has the dominion over a hyena. They're both animals.
My friend,
Yes.
God didn't tell the lion, hey, you have dominion over the hyenas.
Were you privy to that conversation?
You see, this is where it's a tap out. How do you know? Ah, my goodness. Anyway, it's a sad thing to basically see.
Yeah, 100%, man.
And yeah, I'm longing for the day when it is I could do so much more and it is sustainable.
Yeah.
Because there's so many resources and people out there that if somebody took upon themselves to be like a lightning rod, a beacon to whip around, every single year, I'm going to get this from you. And it's not going to touch the sides of your wealth.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And don't worry, I'll use it to basically relieve your city of this. Don't worry, you will get the kudos. Or if it is you don't, better yet, cool, lovely. But not enough people are doing that or have been told that this is what we're looking to do collectively. Yeah? Anywho.
But you know, the thing is, obviously, we won't talk about this for too long, but I think what will happen is you find, and not to be negative at all, but what you find is that the problems are so deep, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just a case of, okay, put you in this warm accommodation and then...
No, I know. As you said, there is even his hesitation to come back because of the anxiety he felt going to have responsibilities and whatnot. Like, how does one combat that? And I'm sure there are therapists and insert any other discipline over there that have answers, right? Because I guess they've either done studies or they've read how to basically do such and such. Yeah. All these particular mechanisms, I'm willing to basically look to get sorted. And it wouldn't just be like for black people. Obviously,
I'm glad you mentioned it because I was going to ask you about that.
No, it wouldn't just be black people. Obviously, my focus would be to try and make sure no black person is this, that, next. But there's no way there's a black person sitting next to a white person, and I'm not saying, come, both of you, let's go. You understand? Because there could be virgins.
You see, again, not to be negative, right, or to sound like you're being idealistic, right? But this is what I found when I started working, that there's certain organizations that will not
just focus on white people.
Yeah, or focus on the LGBT community because what they call it? Stonewall housing, something like that. Someone can correct me. Because they understand that there's certain people who have left home or been kicked out solely because of their something, you know what I mean? The
sexuality.
LGBT. Thank you very much.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yes.
cool, let's deal with those people because sometimes they may feel some type of way about going to other organizations for
Yes.
assistance. So its focus is just on them.
Yes.
And so it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing if you said, okay, cool, I'm just going to be focusing on black people between the age of 17 and 22 because I've noticed that at this particular age, obviously, I'm just basically just trying to say.
Yeah. So you're suggesting maybe it's too much of a bite of the apple to change if my mind isn't focused.
To some degree, especially if you're just starting. Because you may say I just want to only deal with this particular cohort. You know what I'm saying? Because this is the biggest need, and maybe if we fix this, then we can change, have bigger impact on the next generation, or you know what I'm saying? Just little things like that.
I've pictured it, and I still can't do it. No, I understand what you're saying, and I think ideally 100% because it's going to be under the new black, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to come under that particular banner, right? Mm-hmm. But I've pictured myself, walk into a location, Brixton. Mm-hmm. Let's say Leighton, for those who might be, why is it Brixton? And there is Leroy there, mm-hmm. and then Stacey's right next to him.
Yeah.
And I collect Leroy,
mm-hmm.
and I leave Stacey. I don't think that's nice. Especially Stacey's like, she's like, what me? You understand?
What if it was like this then? Both of them get picked up, but then Stacey stays in.
So I pass it on to a sister organization.
Yeah, because typically that's what you'd kind of do. But in terms of the actual accommodation that they can actually stay in, they kind of call their own, you kind of only have for Leroy. Now Stacey can visit, of course. You know what I'm saying?
You know how much like housing or shelter, I should say, you can give if you just buy like a few like flipping warehouses. Do you understand how? Just put beds on the floor. Yeah. You don't have to basically lessen the space by creating all these rooms and whatnot. A large like surface ground could be have nice bedding and whatnot, and you can house so many people. And they know each time it is go out and walk around. If it is that you still need that for your mental whatever, get the air and the freshness and the that social interaction that you seem to like. I don't know if it is at your voyeur or whatnot, but whatever gets your rocks off, right? But come evening, make your way here, there's food, there's shelter, and you can go again,
To be fair, that's kind of what happens, So, again, during that time, I started realizing that there are places like that. Not many, of course, but also a lot of churches open up their doors, you know what I'm saying? Especially, I don't want to get it wrong, but especially... when you may hear certain things in the news about, the weather's going to be X, Y, Z. So they need to get to particular places. So churches may open up and stuff like that, where it's like just free accommodation. But, yeah, man, to be fair, there's a lot of abandoned warehouses that ain't being used for anything.
So you really had a tough time believing the woman when she told you that like all of them or most of them, majority of them have 100%. Mental health issues.
100%. Because I was new to the role as well. I just thought you just want me to just do extra work because basically it meant that I had to now recommend them to a particular organization to help them with the mental health. I just thought I've dealt with this person X, Y, Z. The job is done now, innit? Why now you want me to do more stuff? That's what I just kind of thought. But she was right, man. Because obviously she's had the experience. So she can see it like, nobody wants to be here. So when someone like Suella Braverman says, it's a choice, people like that go crazy. Like, it's not a choice. Or it is a choice, but their ability to choose has been inhibited. You know what I'm saying? So we shouldn't see them in this particular way.
So there was a time when you agreed with Suella Braverman.
No, I don't think I've ever seen it as a choice, but I never thought it was a deep-rooted mental health issue. And I remember, this is why I've recommended this book on the show before, Van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. So there was one type of, there was like a session we had talking about stuff, and somebody recommended that book. And that book is basically, it's probably one of the like leading books in the field now. Just talks about how every interaction, trauma, certain things, the body is holding it, you know what I'm saying? And it's changing your perspective and how you see the world, and it just stays there. And so every decision after that is impacting that decision. So nothing really goes away. You know what I'm saying? So the more trauma, the more this, the more that, the more likely somebody is going to then behave like this. You know what I'm saying? And this is what you see with people on the street. Nobody just turns up on the street. And this is why with the organization that I was a part of, it was about stopping people from having that first night on the street. That first night, the data says, if you have that first night, it sounds silly, but you're more likely to have a second night. And then you then spiral into the lifestyle of being a homeless person, street homeless, I should say, to be specific. So,
So does your body keep a score?
of course, everybody. 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Are you winning?
I mean, I'm doing my best. I mean, I don't know if it's a case of...
I don't know if you register trauma like that, though.
I think everybody does, but I think it manifests in different ways, isn't it? I think it manifests in different ways.
Have you ever popped down?
Pop down?
Yeah, mentally.
Yeah,
have a moment to just give me a second.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Do you just retreat and nobody knows that you popped down or you need a little assistance?
Maybe.
You don't want people to see that you need help because you want to project that you're a paragon of strength.
It's not even that because...
Fortitude.
It's not that because that doesn't... Like, that perspective hasn't made me money.
So it's all framed around money making.
No, it's basically me saying... what does it do for me? You know what I'm saying? For me to be like, I have to appear this particular way in XYZ's opinion.
Really? You're
Yeah.
saying that how people perceive you and how strong you are or how capable you are to deal with certain situations is important?
It is important.
It's not important.
No, it's important because it depends on, I guess, the things you want to do in life.
Because you've been here talking about...
Yeah, 100%.
There's a reason as to why it is that you need to be this man.
100%. That's what I'm saying. I'm not deviating from that. I'm saying in certain environments it's important, 100%. But in terms of just being able to say, oh yeah, I've never popped down before. You know what I mean? Like, what does it do? Nothing. And this is why I also say, I said many times on the show, if somebody has popped down, I don't look at them less. But I guess my conditioning is from early and very deep. So I'm not one of those. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's necessarily a good thing, but it's a thing.
What of those?
You know what I'm trying to say,
That
man.
sounds like something we could use for merch. Are you one of those?
Hey, if it's making money. No, I'm joking.
So you actually use that as a hustle.
What?
Be one of those. If it is, it makes money.
Be one of those. I mean, be one of those?
No, I'm not talking about the selling of the shirts. Would you choose that lifestyle
What lifestyle
if it
exactly?
makes more money than the lifestyle you currently live?
No, but what is the be one of those that you're
The
trying to
opposite
say?
of toxic masculinity.
I think I'm already the opposite of toxic. I don't think I'm toxic.
You didn't even wait a while. You just said that with a face and then you bust into laughter.
You made me laugh. That's
We.
I don't think I'm wholly toxic then. I should say.
I don't think you're extreme.
Thank you.
Because if it is, you're basically saying, I allowed a gentle black woman to change my mind about how...
What, I'm listening.
Wow.
No, I'm trying to understand. Where are we going?
Wait.
Where are we going with this? Where are we going?
And the job in which it is that you were volunteering whilst it is that you were working two jobs.
She wasn't even black.
I assumed so, but I wanted you to have a win, whilst I was saying what I was saying.
I don't have to
Mate,
make
you
up
weren't
the
even
wins.
volunteering either, right? You didn't complain about me saying that. But all right. Fair.
Oh, man.
Anyway, let's crack on to the
Yes.
topic of the day.
All right, people. So, Brent, if you don't mind playing the clip in
Just remove
in the
this
thing.
from the screen. The Discord is open, people. As you can see, there's nobody here just yet, but we welcome all incumbents.
Yes.
Let me just take this off. I don't know why.
I definitely want you people to contribute to this. We have an amazing guest, by the way, coming in today. So we won't spend too long on this, but and maybe we can even make this a topic for another day, to be fair. But this basically, Brent's going to put up, happened over the weekend, I believe. And Mimi made a comment, and it seemed as though people were just getting onto her, man. And I didn't fully understand the reason why. And so it just made me think, okay, cool. You know what? Let's actually...
I like how you've just said Mimi and you just assume everybody's going to know who Mimi is. That's when you know you've made it.
You know what I'm saying? Big up Mimi, man.
Yeah. Hopefully, God willing, one day people just say Brent and they just know.
Oh, for sure.
They just know.
They just know.
Like Prince. Right. Let's see. What have I got here? And bam.
Oh, yep, don't play it.
Yeah.
Basically, what it is, I'll just read it for those who are not watching. Mimi said, I don't want to sound harsh, but we need to gatekeep more. And the reason why is because obviously there's a white woman DJ, yeah? And obviously she's playing Afro beats, loads of women in the background. I think there's only women there, to be fair. No, some men there. And they're enjoying themselves. Harmless video, but obviously she's at the forefront, and it seems to be everything centered around her, innit? And so Mimi just says, I don't want to sound harsh, but we need to gatekeep more. The mix can be good, and I'm not dismissing it, but I don't want someone from the outside to get more clout or opportunity for something we've been doing, especially on Culture FM platform, right? I hope this doesn't translate that I'm being rude or nasty. Me personally, yeah, I took that in the spirit that I believe she was trying to convey it, which is just a reminder to everybody, yo, people obviously are doing their thing, but why is it on Culture FM? Why is it on in certain platforms? Somebody who's not from within the culture, within the community, seems to be amplified more than those that are. You know what I'm saying? Or just as much when they're kind of like a newcomer. Like, why are we so susceptible to the same thing every 6 months? You know what I'm saying? People obviously got onto it. I'm gonna read some of the comments now. Obviously, somebody said, hold on a second. Yeah, someone said everyday division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. Some people said gatekeep music, so Beyonce should have never done a country album neither. Sometimes people should just shut up, honestly. Yeah, if it's that deep, Mimi, you jump on the decks if you want to gatekeep. Because at present, when we go out, we just want to hear good music. I don't care who it is or what they look like. So, yeah, and okay, somebody said, I get what she's saying. She doesn't want someone from outside the culture to blow up more than someone who has been doing it for longer based on their race. And obviously people seem to appreciate that one more. But yeah, somebody also said, music blogger, she's a DJ for goodness sake. They play all types of music, talking for the sake of talking. Yeah, but anyway, so I just wanted to ask everyone, yeah, because obviously every now and again the conversation comes up about the black community should gatekeep more, innit? But I wanted to ask everyone, Brent as well, how do you determine what cultural appropriation is versus cultural appreciation? You know what I'm saying? It seems to me as though there's a thin line, and it seems to me as though some people are able to detect what is that particular thing, and some people say, no, it's this. And so it's like the community is always divided. And if the community is always divided, how do we actually gatekeep? Because you know what I'm saying? Because that means you could have different people on post, and certain people will be let through, and some people won't. And you may be let through the wrong person because you don't know the difference between, or we as a whole haven't determined what is appreciation, what is appropriation. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, what's your thoughts, Brent?
What's the question?
What's the difference between cultural appreciation and appropriation? How do you make that determination?
In this case?
Yeah. Or just in any case.
Do
really.
I believe that she is appropriating or appreciating?
The things we don't know her, innit? So this is why I didn't too much care about her. It was more so about what Mimi was saying. And I feel as though Mimi was right in what she was saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So forget her, because I've never seen her a day in my life. I don't know who she is.
So essentially Mimi saying that Culture FM shouldn't have basically platformed her.
I don't know if Mimi's saying that, because she could have said that and she didn't say that.
When she says we should gatekeep more, what was she implying?
I think she might be just saying, guys, we see what's going on here, but let's be mindful. The same energy we're giving to this, let's make sure we give it to the people who are already here, present, doing this before her, doing it while she's here, and doing it after. You know what I'm saying? Like, be mindful, because every time we bring somebody who don't look like us, they seem to blow up and monopolize the market, man, in our own culture, in our own community. And they're not of the cultural community.
Question.
Yes.
If Drake was replaced by that white lady,
Yeah.
would you prefer it more?
Again, my issue isn't with the white lady. I guess it was just more like if for example Mimi just said this without there being somebody there, without no video accompanying it, then I'll still agree with her. You know what I'm saying? But to answer that question, I don't think Mimi would have an issue with it, and I wouldn't have an issue with it, I guess. Because in this world, in this community, Drake's considered black. So he's just doing black music. He's just doing what another black DJ would be doing. You know what I'm saying? So you wouldn't necessarily be saying, okay, you know what I mean? I'm showing some favoritism to Drake. So, yeah.
Appropriation. What's the distinction for me? What's the difference?
Whilst you're thinking, let me read out a comment. So Ebony Onyx, big up Ebony. She said, appropriation looks like chicken shop girl, right? Appreciation is your brethren who grew up in the ends and enjoys a cheeky curry goat and rice and peas.
I want to see using the same environment.
Yeah.
Give me the.
Okay. I think she basically would be saying the appreciation would be this white girl in the crowd, apart from being the DJ. She wouldn't be the DJ. She'll be appreciating the music, dancing like everybody else.
So it's about the platforming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at no point in time should there ever be that white person sat at that table in that chicken shop. With a camera pointed at them, interviewing people.
But this is the thing. I don't think, based on what Ebony said or based on what Mimi said.
No, we're here, right? So why I said I wanted an equivalent example is because you've built this particular image of this white girl. I mean, not built. We've seen the image of this white girl sat in this chicken shop, interviewing the culture, the scene, and they keep on turning up, right? And they're sent to her, right? And one would argue if there was a black person there, you may not have had the same entertainment value. You may have had better entertainment value, but the amount of people viewing might have dwindled or dropped. One could also argue it depends on who is sat in that seat.
Yeah.
Right? The whatever factors were in play, the machine pushed this to the nth degree, right? It got assistance, it got help, and that help wouldn't have been given to like a similar creative with a different hue, skin hue, right? So I understand that, right? And I guess people who privately own businesses can do what they want to do, continue to generate money. But the scene, the culture, can also do what they want to do. And I don't know if this is part of gatekeeping, as in knowing what is happening, hearing what's happening, and still turning up to say, I want to basically get in on this, benefit from this, as opposed to, nah, I'm not basically looking to help you continue to propel this. I would rather go and sit down with somebody else that looks like me and give them my notoriety, my fame, and tell them, hey, mold it, go on, use it. So I understand that different parties involved in this particular gatekeeping,
100%
issue. So going back to the initial thing, the reason why is I wanted a comparable example because the environment in which this girl sat in was different than the example given with somebody who is in the crowd and is your brethren, I don't know, observing something or talking about that person's life whilst happening to eat chicken. There's no camera on you. That's completely different. So I need comparable circumstances in order to say, all right,
So
I understand that.
So that means maybe you're pretty much just saying the analogy just doesn't work.
That example,
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Ebony, do you want to tweak your example?
No, you're in the room here with me.
Yeah,
so there is appreciation and there's appropriation.
Yeah.
Right? Some people are now saying that Drake has appropriated, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's fair? He will go to different songs, cultures, and he will borrow the style, the flavor, the vibe, and then popularize it because he's got the machine behind him.
Yeah.
Anything he looks to touch down, whatever land he touched down on, whatever culture or community, he will embody that, mimic it, and popularize it.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, some people would say there's a lot of benefit there for the scene in which it is he's touched down in. There's more eyes, there's more attention drawn to that, right?
Yeah.
But other people was like, no, sorry,
See,
you little vulture.
And I don't necessarily see it that way. I think because of the whole Kendrick thing, people obviously don't like Drake for whatever reason.
Can you appropriate without being a vulture?
Aren't they basically the same thing? Or does the vulture, I guess? Because I guess if the vulture aspect is not there, you might just say this person just appreciating this, really loves this, and just really, you know what I mean? Like, they're not trying to take from you. They're not trying to leave you with nothing. You know what I mean? Or control everything.
So is it the intent?
Yeah, I think so.
So
I think so.
can we accuse a white person who's being popularized, being made popular, of doing something we black people always do, but don't get that particular push, right? What's that?
Don't know.
Somebody is calling the TDA phone. It's not. We don't use it anymore. Please find your way into Discord. Oh,
Discord people.
Demi and Stacy are in Discord. Thank you very much for joining us.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yes. Let me just put the microphone on. Good morning, Demi, and good morning, Stacy. If it is, you can make your way to the stage. I appreciate you greatly for turning up. Good question by Ebony. Who made the white person popular? Yeah. One could argue that if pushed or given resources and placed in a particular environment, a part of the internet, because of the unique nature of it, white people will flock, be like, one of ours are in these spaces and they're killing it. Yeah. Right? But I keep saying that those people turning up to sit down on that particular table, they're equally as guilty. Good morning, Demi, and good morning, Stacey. Can you hear us? Or do I need to restart?
I can.
All right.
Good morning, guys. Can you hear
Good
me?
morning. Yes, we can hear
Thank
you.
you very much for attending class today. What are your thoughts? Can you jump in?
Sure. Do you know what? Do you know what? Whenever I see this topic, I don't know. I always have this thought, and I don't know. But this whole thing really bugs me a lot. Like, I just feel like it's not even. I don't even necessarily have a problem with the white people doing whatever they want to do. I think everyone should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. I think the problem I have a lot of the time is like the reaction of black people or our reaction as black people towards like what they're doing. I think it really annoys me. So like, for instance, you'll see I don't know, on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, you'll see like a black person doing a dance or whatever, a dance trend or like singing a song, whatever, like a new Ashake song, for example, like a few likes, whatever, a few retweets. But as soon as a white person jumps on that, it's like, I can't explain. Like, you'll see in the comments, oh, they're invited to the cookout, they're this, oh, they're Oluwa Jack, they're that. Like, people get this overly excited reaction, and I see it a lot with black people. Whereas when it's the opposite way around, when it's black people doing a white people, like something that's typically like associated with like white culture or even Asian culture or any other culture, it's like people hate so much us doing that thing. But then as soon as and I guess maybe this is just our nature or whatever, but I don't know, that thing really bugs me. And I think it's less about the person doing the act. It's more about us and how we react to them and how we like constantly amplify these people for some, I don't know, maybe it's just like as a people, I don't know if it's some kind of inferiority complex, but I just feel like all the things about the invited to the cookouts, the Oluwa Jack, the this, the that, like it just winds me up so much. Like, I don't get why people constantly do that. And it's something you'll see across social media all the time. And that's how these people get, let's say like this DJ or whoever. Again, I'm not hating on this DJ specifically. I'm not hating on anyone doing whatever they're doing. I'm just saying that that's what propels them. It's our like overexcited nature at seeing basic things that normal black people do every day. Like you'll see black people doing the same stuff. Like your friends sing the Ashake like songs all the time, but as soon as a white person on TikTok sings it, it's like a million views. It's crazy to me. So I think that's just the thing that really bugs me about this whole topic.
I 100% agree.
This is so interesting. Great point. Question, Emmanuel.
Yeah.
When you see a white person speaking fluent Yoruba, does it like boil your blood? Or do you like, wow?
No, never. Wow. I wouldn't say it boils my blood because I rarely see it.
Precisely.
But I just feel like why?
Why what?
Why have you taken the time to want to learn my language?
And you see, so your response to what Demi said.
Weird.
Oh, sorry?
I said black people are so weird.
We'll get to you, Stacey, just now. We get to you just now. So your response to Demi's point, which is fantastic because I see it all the time too, is you would rather them not be dancing. You'd rather them not be seeing your dance and say, oh, I like that. Let me look to do it. And yes, someone has decided to film me and it's gone on the internet and it's gone crazy.
So to me, it's different to the whole language thing because I feel like the language thing it just reminds me of, I guess, Europeans going to Africa, learning the language that Africans speak and taking everything they can, right?
Here you are speaking Queen's English.
Not because I want to.
Europeans learn the language, question mark?
Oh, you don't know? You don't know?
But was it not the opposite, them imposing English? I'm confused.
No, but they also learn the language. There was many people that speak the language.
I'm sure, but okay, anyway, that's a minority, but that's neither here nor there.
Anyway, right? So yeah. To me, it's them just learning our ways to then use it against us. If that's better, right? If that sounds more accurate.
So that's where your mind goes immediately.
Yeah, because why?
You've done it like a Trojan horse. You've learned it so that you can
100%.
Okay.
But that's more specific to the language thing and the actual culture, wearing our clothing and stuff like that. But as it pertains to stuff like music,
so you prefer for them to remain in Nigeria and keep to their own customs, keep to themselves, do not learn the language so they can communicate with y'all. That's what you'd prefer.
No, but again, that to me is different. So for example, if you're in that particular country and you are just integrating with the people, I think that might be a bit different than somebody saying, okay, cool, I'm learning this to then go back to the UK or to then go back to this to maybe create businesses to exploit people. This is why it goes back to what you're talking about the intent. Because some people you can sit down who appreciate your culture and you feel no bad way about it at all. You know what I'm saying? Because you know the person, you know where it's coming from. We're just living in a society together. But some people don't have that. And sometimes you get glimpses of of what you believe their motivation is in certain things they do and say. You know what I'm saying? But in this specific example though, like what Demi is saying, I fully agree. I guess the onus shouldn't necessarily be on the white person who's enjoying our music and wants to try the dancer and things of that nature. But us, that's where the issue is. You know, this is why I say I totally agree with him. Why are we the ones that's so fascinated by somebody doing a zonto? Why? Why is this Becky doing a zonto better than when Gina does it?
Okay.
On this episode of Black People Are So...
Go on, Stacey, jump in.
Like, why are we so annoying? That's honestly, when Demi was talking, that was honestly my thought this whole time. Not calling you annoying, Demi, but like...
Too late.
My irritation is with Black people from a different angle. Like, why can't we? Why are we fighting? Why do we make the most smallest thing obtuse for no reason? Like, for example, we talk about how Black people joke all day. Why this whole cookout thing? Like, I get it. Like, we need to gatekeep, but are we seriously thinking that when someone comments oh, so and so's invited to the cookout. They're actually invited to the cookout. It's just a joke. Like, we're literally. Why is the concept of novelty so foreign to us? Obviously, if we see another Black person, another African person playing Afrobeats, it is normal. It's not that there's anything spectacular about it. The spectacularness comes from if it's a really good set or they did something different. But when a white person does it, clearly it's something novelty about it. You're not typically the Afrobeats demographic. So if you're able to do a really great set, clearly there's something novelty about your performance, which is going to boost how it's received. Now, that's separate from what Mimi is saying. And again, going to my point of why are Black people obtuse all the time? Like, I think what she's saying is very valid, but I think that the way she said it, which I hate to get semantic-y, is what's causing all the outrage. Like, it is true. It is sad to see that D. James has 3-point-something million views on that Culture FM set, and everyone else's average is like 150K. Maybe if you had a viral moment, 200K. And in a short window of time, he has 3 million views. Like, again, going to the point of novelty, like, we would love for more Black DJs to have that type of traction. And I think she's speaking more towards that. But I think that has more to, that goes more to show about how we as Black people share and we as Black people appreciate what other Black people are doing. I'm going to fault myself. With DJ set, and I think I would have done the same with another Black DJ because his set was just that good. Like, I found myself sharing his set to different people. Like, this shit is cool. Like, the concept of Culture FM, not even that he's white, is a cool concept. And the set is really great. But why is it so hard for us to understand, like, novelty, and we are the ones who control the reaction to novelty? Like, it's not, appropriation looks like, oh, girl who's DJing, I don't know her name, the white girl who's DJing, literally getting on the decks with Fulani braids, Ankara, and chanting in Igbo. Like, that would be appropriation. But her appreciating Afrobeat music, do we say the same to Black people who
This is why.
listen to rock?
Can I just quickly respond to that point, Stacey?
Of course.
Because I mean I get what you're saying, that novelty, you know, like I get it. Yeah, something looks different, so of course, you know, that's fine. That's going to make it be shared or whatever. But why is it that novelty when it comes to entering a Black space seems to be always appreciated, but Black people entering other spaces in this novelty angle never kind of gets this appreciation or this widespread love? Like, even some of the biggest artists like Beyonce making a country album, there was a lot of backlash to that as well. Like, it seems that whenever Black people want to enter these other spaces, the novelty thing doesn't seem to work for us, and people don't accept it. But then whenever anybody's like uncle or whatever entering a Black space, immediately it's accepted and it's the best thing ever. It's better than the Black people already in the space.
Because they don't care about us. My point. That's why. It's quite.
Who's in control of the reaction? Go ahead. Sorry.
It was that.
Sorry. Hey guys.
Bathroom Diaries.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Oh,
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning. Sorry for the loud noise. They're doing construction next door. If you hear it.
That's okay.
Answer your question is because they don't care. Like, white people, Asian, basically everyone that's not Black, if you go into their spaces, yeah, they might be like, oh, hey, cool, but there's obviously like a negative stereotype with us, which is so unfortunate, and we don't really seek validation to be in their culture anyway, and even if we do, that's kind of sad. So it's just people don't care. But when it's like, because we've gone through a lot as Black people, when we see other people embracing our culture, we want to be like, yes, go on, white girl, go on, Asian, yes, do the thing. And then that's why they're celebrated more, because naturally as a race, we are very accepting and we are very inviting, which is like down to our default. And I also wanted to quickly say with the culture appropriation as well, I feel like nowadays everyone just throws that word around, because even if a white girl did wear braids, there's nothing wrong with that. It's all about intention. So like back in the days, maybe some of you guys can relate or whatever, used to go on holiday to Spain. You get the aunties sitting there, they're doing the little white girl's hair, they're doing the mum's hair, camera in it, whatever. But I think cultural appropriation happens when, for example, Kim Kardashian, she'll do her braids, nothing wrong with the braids, and then she'll change it to boxer braids, like it's not called box braids. And then that's culture appropriation, when you're trying to change something that exists in the culture and twist it and make it yours. But the average person that's out there wearing cameras or whatever, not that I care if white girl, I don't care what they do with their hair, but as soon as they wear a little braid, oh my god, you're appropriating a culture, you can't do that, and it's like, pick your battles. That's not even a big fucking deal. Oh, excuse my language, sorry, but it's not a big deal. And I just feel like people just jump on anything. And I love Mimi, but I just feel like that example, considering we don't know the context of this white girl, she's literally a DJ dancing to their music. It might be a bit annoying in your soul, like, oh, why is she doing that? But to like pick her out and be like, nah, she shouldn't do that, we should gatekeep. I just feel like that's a bit bitter. But with M Dot, bun M Dot. He is culture appropriation. Tom Hanks' son, culture appropriation. Those are the real people that need to actually be cancelled. But yeah, that's it. That's all I had to say.
Do you know,
guys, sorry.
can I just say quickly say something? Yeah? All I wanted to say is, I think what sometimes we're forgetting, apart from Diaries and Stacey, is rarely does somebody wake up as M Dot. They start in a different form years earlier, and so I'm taking it as Mimi saying, guys, just remember, we've seen it here. Just remember. Not necessarily like this particular. This is why Mimi was saying, I'm not trying to be harsh or nasty. Again, I'm just taking it in the spirit that I believe she was intended.
You know how people would take it.
No, I mean, that's what you're saying, but I'm just taking it in the spirit in which I believe she intended it. I'm not trying to be bad, but this is a message for black people. Be mindful here, because this is what happens time and time again. It starts
But
here,
again,
and before you know it, they're the one with the biggest deals. Before you know it, they're the ones with the biggest events in our culture. Be mindful, because it happens time and time again.
On this episode of Black People Refuse to Take Accountability, like, to your point, Demi, like, who is the one who's controlling the reaction? When we go into rock, when we go into country, when we go into electronic, more white dominated spaces, and we don't get that shock factor, is it black people who should be shocked, or is it the white people who should be shocked?
The white people, they are shocked, but they're negatively shocked, and they let that be known.
But again, the white people are in control of that reaction that you're looking for. I'm saying, and this is how I digest what Mimi's saying, and I truly believe, based on the way she worded it down to the disclaimer, this is what she meant. Really, it's unfortunate that I understand the novelty, like, oh, this is interesting. We don't often see white people do great work in these spaces, especially because things like Afrobeats is very culture related. Like, why can't we give the same amount of attention to the black people who are already doing that? And that's a us thing. We control that. It's not, we shouldn't be faulting them or accusing them of appropriation because they appreciate music in our space and they like it and they're skilled at playing it. Like that's misdirecting the anger.
I think there's a couple of layers to this as well. Just to add on a layer to that, I do think, yeah, we can control the initial reaction, but we can't be blind to the fact that white people, the white industry, or controls like the music industry. Let's say like white people as a whole, whether or not we control the spaces in Afrobeats and so on and so forth. And I'm gonna say something that might be controversial to some people here, and I'm gonna preface that. For example, I'll give an example that I always kind of look to. Eminem, right? So Eminem is obviously a good rapper, let's say even a great rapper, whatever. But I think that Eminem thing is quite sinister. When you notice that when you speak to a lot of white people, when you ask them, who's their favorite rapper, like it's not a coincidence that, they usually say, Eminem's one of the greatest rappers ever, or Eminem's this or Eminem's that. Now, I'm not saying that Eminem's not a good rapper, because I know some like people who are in love with hip hop are gonna, have a problem with that. But I don't think he's one of the best rappers ever. For example, I think there's a specific point that, let's say, the industry's trying to make when they do that, in the sense of like saying, all right, cool, like a white guy has to be here, and not to deny his talent, but I just think there's something sinister about that Eminem conversation when it comes to rap, and I feel like Afrobeats, if we're not careful, could also go in the same way, and we could have one of the greatest Afrobeats artists ever being a person that is not black, basically. I feel like there's something sinister about that, and I think it's a difficult conversation to have, and I understand that I understand that it's not a popular point, but there's
let's have it.
Yeah.
Can I ask that question quickly? Yeah, to Demi and Stacey. If, for example, I don't know, one white guy is or ends up becoming one of the greatest Afrobeat artists of all time, would that be a problem to either one of you?
There's no universe where that will ever happen.
That wasn't the question he asked, Sir Ed.
Yeah, exactly. Would that be a problem to you, Stacey?
Yes.
Why?
Because how did we get here?
We got here by not bloody understanding when somebody's appropriating from the door.
And who's to blame for that?
Us and you.
Morning.
Good morning. Who's speaking?
Hello. So, yeah, sorry.
Is that Ebony?
I have to, yeah.
How are you? You right?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, if I jump off the phone quickly, it's because I'm waiting for a courier to come. But anyway, I have to go against everything that Stacey is saying, and I'm on Demi's side. What my issue is that people like to pick, choose, and refuse who is acceptable and who isn't acceptable. The whole inviting white people to the cookout thing, I'm tired of that rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a joke, and we need to stop making those quote-unquote jokes in public. Like, how do we get to, oh yeah, he can sing, quote-unquote, like a black person. Let him come to the cookout. Oh, he seasons food, quote-unquote, like a black person. Let him come to the cookout. It's disingenuous, and it's also, it takes away from everything that we do as a people, that you diminish who we are down to something as basic as cooking food or as dancing or as that. So that is the only standard that we have. There's, to get into quote unquote white people's spaces, we need all the letters behind our names. We need to prove ourselves. We need to study for how many years. But guess what we can say? Oh, you can shack you on the beat, so you can come to our cookout. Give me a flipping break, man.
Can I ask a question to you?
Yeah, go on.
And this might be one of those things I'm noticing that is a hard divide between when lingo originates in the US that translates to other places and is completely like misconstrued. Do y'all have this saying, you all right with me?
Essentially, but we wouldn't say it in that same way. But I get what you're trying to say.
That's like a thing for us out here. When someone does something that aligns with a point of view that, and it's not even like a race thing, it's like a point of view that you have, and someone being invited to the cookout is just another variation of you all right with me. And I think that because people are becoming very, not hyper aware, because I don't think all of it is misplaced. I just think this is one of the strays that gets misplaced, where not that we take things too seriously, because I don't want to gaslight. I think where there's smoke, there's fire, and there is things to address that comes as a domino effect of certain sayings like this. But the reason why, to me, and maybe I'm generalizing on behalf of all the Americans that are in and out of the room, like that's another one of those things to us where it's like, you're all right with me. Okay, you take baths every day? Oh, you're all right with me. I'm not inviting you to be black.
Sorry, to interject on your point there. So I get we can have white allies. That's not what the issue is. But the issue,
it's not an ally.
Yeah,
it's not an ally. And that's what I'm saying by some of the terms that to us are very casual, that we use in casual settings that we joke about, has entered the space of controversialness and seriousness, and that's not where it originated. And that's not to nullify the collateral damage that might have come as a product of that. I get the idea that some people take the casualness of those sayings as their invitation to do other things, but to me that just goes to show that Black people need to stand more on business than trying to shut gates a little bit too prematurely and say when somebody crossed the line of actual cultural appropriation, we don't address it at that moment.
Okay. So to interject on your point there, what Mimi was saying and what a lot of people, and what's so hard to look in the comments and to hear people's rhetoric against what Mimi was saying. Mimi wasn't saying that this white girl can't DJ Afrobeats. She never came out and said that. What she turned around and said is, if this white girl is now platformed higher than a black person, we've done that to ourselves. She didn't say we're to go out and cancel her. What she is simply saying is, okay, yeah, she could be good. But what about the thousands of other Afrobeats DJs, the thousands of other piano DJs, the thousands of other bashment DJs? Why are they not getting platformed over the white? Are you going to tell me that she's the greatest? Hold on, is she the greatest DJ that you've ever heard? Because I know that's a fucking lie. I know that's a lie.
Now you're on the same page with me, because I'm saying that that's exactly what Mimi's saying. But I'm saying that we have to look in the mirror and realize that it's us who is contributing to the growth in this platform. I don't think it's white people that's giving D. James the 3.1 million views that he got on Culture FM. It is us. So
Mm-hmm.
what she said is we should give the same attention, the same amount of shares, the same spotlight when Black, African, Caribbean DJs play sets like that. We should be doing it for Black people. I understood exactly what she said.
That's true, yes.
And that
I'm
is
sorry.
not pointing the finger at appropriation to girl who's DJing. That's just a conversation about who and what we give attention to.
I've got a
Hold on a
question.
minute. So,
Guys.
yeah, go
So
on.
I just wanted to say, so you know how we always take the brunt as Black people? We'll be like, oh, this is our responsibility, our problem. Do you think it would have been better if Mimi had added the event organizers, or who actually hired, like, put more energy into them rather than us as audience members? We don't even really have nothing to do with the whole DJing thing anyway, but it's like, as soon as she said that, obviously there are parts I do agree with, but I just feel like, can certain things just be directed to the right people rather than the whole of the Black community taking the brunt for this? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Okay, so what I would say is the problem is with us as a quote unquote community, we don't know how to be on one accord. Like I said, turn around tomorrow and put on a yarmulke and you see if a Jewish person is going to dap you up and be like, well, go on, my brother, you'd be arrested before you got to the end of the road. Because you know what? Other cultures do not play. And this is the difference between them and us. There is no side conversations in gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is gatekeeping. And this is what Black people need to learn how to do. Just,
there are Black Jewish people.
I'm not saying that there's not Black Jewish people, but what I'm saying to you is in a general ones and twos. Okay, I can remember an episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta. Kenya turned around, she wore a Native American outfit as a Halloween costume. Do you know what happened? Bravo had to put out a statement as that aired the next day and say they're sorry that they allowed that to happen. Do you know why? Because the Native Americans went to town on that ass. Yeah? We seem to be the only people that can't get on an accord. Because even in this, you got people that are saying, oh no, Mimi was too harsh. Mimi was, I don't care what Mimi said. Guess what? I'm going to quote Christy, black over every blood clot thing up in here, yeah?
All right, then.
So if Mimi is right, wrong, or indifferent, she is a Black woman and we're going to back her, and that is it. Yeah, but guess what?
Brent,
Oh no, why do Black people take this so harsh? Oh no, why is she reacting like that? Oh no, she's coming across hating. Oh no, she's being bitter. Well, look at where we are at now. Because this shouldn't even be a conversation. The conversation should just be like, guess what? We don't want you in there. Country music started with Black people. Jazz music started with Black people. Yeah? But guess what? Like I put in the comments, Billy Ray Cyrus have come out and back Little Nas X so his music could go on the country album chart. Yeah? How could that even be a thing? Beyonce doing country music shouldn't be controversial. Somebody like... what's her name? K. Michelle has been fighting to get in that scene for how long? She comes from the epicenter of country music. She's a Black woman, but guess what? They won't. Because white people have once again stolen something from us, repackaged it, and now look where it's at. So when a Black person does something, it's controversial. The thing that we created, come on, man. Like I said, we need to know how to stand on business. And standing on business is just saying, do you know what? That Black person, I'm agreeing with it. I'm agreeing with it.
I don't agree with Black people because they're Black personally. However, I think the important parts of what you were saying are very much in line with what I've been saying. If our old girl got behind that DJ booth in Ankara, we would have a problem. Like, that is appropriation. I'm just saying, because of the way appropriation is flung around, we don't address actual appropriation the way it should. It gets conflated. To answer your question, Bathroom Diaries, if Mimi were to tag Culture FM, her anger would be misdirected, because they didn't promote D James or Old Girl Set any different than they normally do. They usually do a teaser. The teaser goes viral. They do another video on Instagram saying it's going to drop tomorrow. Then they drop the video. They didn't do anything different than what they usually do. Now, if they would have did more promo, if they would have done a bunch of different, other sponsorships around, insert the DJ here and the DJ is white, then it would be appropriate to say, Culture FM, y'all didn't put this same energy into, this particular other DJs the way you put it into these white DJs that you've had on your platform. That would make sense. But all I'm saying is, Yes, Black people have trouble getting on one accord. But to me, when conversations like this come up, I look at the comments and I'm frequently rolling my eyes, because the reason why we can never move forward is because we the shit that we should be fighting for is not, like, we don't even get there, because we address all the irrelevant things, the misplaced things, the misunderstood things, and don't do the actual appropriation, the actual point of offense, because it gets so conflated.
So can I just ask you, what was not seen as appropriation here? What are we misunderstanding with this? Because it is appropriation.
She's appropriating what?
She's appropriating the culture. Did she
So-
go? If you're going to tell me that she grew up in Nigeria, if you're going to tell me that she grew up in Gambia, if you're going to tell me that she grew up in Ghana, if you're going to tell me that she grew up in, but if you're going to tell me that she grew up somewhere where this is all she knows, then go ahead, do your thing, baby girl.
So
But
then,
that's some white girl from somewhere in. Go on, tell me what white people do that Black people do, because we are the founders of everything on this earth. So there is nothing that you're going to tell me, unless it's coming to sleeping with Dog and their family. There ain't nothing that Black people do that white people have done it first.
When Black people go into electronic spaces, do we look at them crazy? When Black people sing,
When Black people go to Stacey, be for fucking real. Be for real. Be for real. When Black people go into electronic spaces, do you know that the person that created the internet was actually a Black person? Oh, but we're not ready for that conversation. The person that made the patent for the light bulb was a Black person, but we're not ready for that. Because what? Edison and them people, they stole their ideas and stole their patents from them? Come on, man. Come on, be realistic. Be realistic. You went to a Black HBU or whatever you lot call it, and you're going to come and tell me that when Black people go into these spaces, those spaces are our spaces. Like I said, tell me a space.
No, they're not.
Dominant. Oh my goodness. Come on.
We might have created them. Us
Us
acknowledging that we created those spaces.
Be for real. Be for real. Yeah? You cannot tell me that they might be dominant in those spaces because of how they monopolize those spaces, but please do not tell me that those are white spaces.
I didn't discredit that.
Okay, so go on. Because you said when Black people go into electronics, do we look at them crazy? Why would we look at a Black person crazy for getting into electronics? Are we going to be for real? Okay.
It is white. I think it's important to note that me saying that the space is white dominated does not take credit away from the fact that it originated in Black culture. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when Black people go into those spaces, they get that novelty reaction makes sense because we don't dominate those spaces presently.
We don't dominate those spaces in white-dominated countries. So let's be real there. Because in India, Indian people aren't getting a round of applause for being in tech, because guess what? That's where they're supposed to be. In Africa, Black people don't get a round of applause because guess what? That's where they're supposed to be. It's only when we're in white-dominant places. So if we're going to look at it through those eyes, then, but still, it's not appropriation. Can't appropriate something that I created.
I've got a question.
Sorry, let me just quickly continue. That's like in 20 years, jerk now becoming a white people thing. And then when a Black person then cooks jerk again, it's, ooh, this Black person, no. I think the fuck not. It started with me and it's always going to be me. I don't care how you try to repackage it. I am the prototype. I am the blueprint. Yeah, sorry, go on, Bathroom Diary.
Okay, so going back to the DJ thing, right? So how would we gatekeep that? Does that mean that no white DJs or no other races should DJ at that event? So as a community, how do we gatekeep something like that situation? What are the solutions to gatekeep it?
Crickets.
Wow.
Are you waiting for me?
Wow.
Are you waiting for me?
You don't have that. You don't have that, Emily.
It's not crickets for me. So if you want me to talk, it's not crickets for me.
Because she's been talking to me crickets. How dare you talk to Emily like that?
No, I'm just saying, like, this is, to me, this is just another episode of Black people and our issues. But again,
can I do have a response to that question. Also, I'm going to jump off in a bit, and this is my last point on this. Basically, I think in terms of gatekeeping, I see obviously when other cultures gatekeep against Black people, right? It's usually like a visceral response, a really nasty reaction to a Black person, like making a country song or making like a rock song. Or I remember back in the day when Jay-Z was supposed to perform at Glastonbury, and that there was that massive backlash, and even one of the brothers from Oasis was like, nah, it could never happen, blah, blah, blah. So obviously I don't believe black people should go out being negative, because I just don't believe that's in our nature. That's not what we should do. But I think the point that you made, Stacey, earlier about, oh, the cookout thing is just a joke. And I agree, it's just a joke, just like the Oluwa Jack or the Oluwa whoever. It's just a joke. But I think even if we start from there, I know it's just a joke and it's just like a laid back colloquialism type of thing. But there's sometimes truth behind, like, you know, I don't know what the popular phrase is, but there's usually truth to like a joke, or a little bit of truth behind a joke. And I think even if we can just stop doing things like that, because it really, like, it bothers me when I just go through comments and I just see all of that. Like, I get people are having a laugh and they're joking, but it just doesn't sit right with me. I'm just like, why are you so, like, it's like you're like worshiping them. You're so happy that they're getting involved. Like, oh, thank you, white people,
White Jesus
for enjoying
complex.
our music. Thank you, white people, for enjoying our thing. Like, it's just like, it's too cringe. So I think at least maybe, as much as it's a joke, let's stop making those jokes. So the one that really bothers me is the Oluwa Jack. In Yoruba, Oluwa literally means God. Like, what are you people doing? Like, what are you actually insane? So, like, as much as that's a joke, please stop. So that would be my idea to at least address some of this. Now, obviously, I know that doesn't tackle the whole thing, and I guess we don't need to start getting into, like, you know, calling people out and letting them lose their contracts and blah, blah, blah. That's not, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I don't believe that's the right thing to do, but at least let's control our responses and just be matured and, like, reasonable, and not just turn into, like, let's just not turn into worshipping white people because they like our songs. That's I think that would be a good start.
Agreed, man. All right. I guess that's a perfect way to wrap this up, man.
I didn't get to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing, man.
It's because there was crickets.
No,
Wow.
it's fine.
Wow.
It's fine. I think
this is crazy, man.
I think the point that I was trying to land has, you know, been long gone. But I just think that it's frustrating to see, first and foremost, a lot of the things that a lot of everyone was saying here in the Discord, I acknowledged. Like I said, you just because we originated something doesn't mean that we currently are the primary consuming demographic. And it would be obtuse of us to not acknowledge that out of us originating things came the existence of subcultures that we didn't create. Like, we can make commentary. Two things can exist at the same time. And I think that there are nuances, like when we go into said spaces where the subcultures of what we created, or the way the things that we created are presently received, are not dominated by us. And
hold on a minute, Stacey, because I'm just going to keep on going back to rock and roll. So hold on a minute. So when Elvis Presley was directly stealing our music, songs that were written and sung by black people, those was ours. It wasn't, there's a subgenre of rock and roll that he created. The same rock and roll that we sung is the same rock and roll that he sung. But guess what? Because black people were being lynched. Guess what? Because of segregation. Guess what? Because of Jim Crow. We weren't able to benefit from our thing. So when you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, there's a subculture. The subculture is their racist structure that they've put in there. The subculture is systemic racism. So what subculture are we talking about here?
Did I deny that?
No, but you're saying, oh, now a subculture exists. So we should be happy that the subculture exists. How can we be happy?
Did I deny that that's not a product of racism?
But what you're saying doesn't make any sense. You're talking about.
But I'm trying to understand what your challenge. I never said.
My challenge is you literally just said, "Oh, but we once created it, but now they dominate it. So we should just be accepting of the fact that they dominate the space."
I never said that. I never said.
So what are you saying? What's your point that you're saying, please? Because I've misconstrued your point.
No, I'm saying that when it's not rocket science. Understand that when you're in a space where at the present moment. I'm not disregarding our origin. I'm not disregarding the history. I'm not disregarding all the racism that took place to get to the present moment. But I'm saying in the present moment, we are not typically in that space. It is novelty. The same way in reverse. That is just by definition.
Okay, so
you can't, again,
what the thing is, history could be yesterday. And the thing that people try to act with Black history is that it was so many years ago. Now, hold on a minute, because I'm going to make a point. You grew up in
Oh no,
America, so
you
I'm
can't
not sure how
ask
the
her to
world
hold
was.
on if she wants to interrupt, because you interrupted her initially.
Okay, sorry, go on.
Trust me, I understand your perspective. My general frustration is that I feel like a lot of the times the areas that we should focus on, where our frustrations should be pointed, in my opinion, oftentimes get conflated because energy is misdirected. And in this particular instance, as it involves Mimi's comment, I think that the argument of cultural appropriation is not necessarily as applicable here, because what she was trying to say is that we should aim our attention in the same way that we gave the 3.1 million views to D James and the white DJs who do it. We should also put that same direction to the Black people who do it. And that is more of a conversation about our activity, our attention, our promotion of Black people in the space, and less about that person, quote unquote, appropriating. And to me, the appropriation argument often gets conflated because we misdirect, in my opinion, what is considered appropriation. We don't get to have the discussion about white people who walk around here like M. White people who walk around here in Fulani braids, which is a bigger deal here in America because of the history of braids and slavery. I don't know how it's digested on the other side of the pond, but white people who walk around here in Ankara, white people who walk around here in Native American and different cultural things as costume. Because we often start and stop the conversation. It's good to start it, but we often start and stop it at things like, oh, so-and-so's invited to the cookout. Yes, I'll accept that the colloquialism oftentimes has a domino effect, and we should discuss that, and we often do. But I also recognize that it's taken differently in other places because of how we speak in casualness. That's all. Two truths can exist at the same time.
All right.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that two truths can exist, but I would just say, truth is truth and truth is infallible. It's just like mathematics, and I'll just leave it there.
Thank you very much.
Before we move on, could I offer a tangent?
Yes.
I think, Ebony, that your last statement there actually probably matches onto it, because so Adinkra symbols used in Ghana, or from like Akan, like symbology, proverbs, like just like life lessons. So like another area of like potential appropriation could exist, because I'm looking at a research paper here. There's somebody I heard about a couple of years ago, Ron Eglash, that is based at Michigan University, and he calls it Adinkra Mathematics, a study of ethno-computing in Ghana. I've loaded up Discord to put in a photo of one of the papers, but he's talking about like the sweeping curves and the shapes within the symbols as like examples about logarithms or like different scalar calculations. So it's interesting that if you go to Ghana, I think in Nigeria, with the Nsibidi, you've got letterings that have these shapes that possibly mean other things than we have integrated into our society. But say like across different buildings, you'll see the shapes of that represent like God is the highest, or going back to recover some information. But then somewhere in America, somebody who's studying like indigenous relationships to science and technology has picked this up and said, wait, there's a deeper maths that exists within here that can be applied towards computing. And then you've also got a Black physicist, Sylvester James Gates, who has adapted the Adinkra word and created another set of symbols as ways of putting maths calculations and equations into symbols, and then being able to do maths through those symbols, which is crazy, very cool. But he draws a distinction from like the Adinkra symbols. So you've got one person who's not of Ghanaian origin, who's looking at them and studying them and trying to like relate to the deeper knowledge that exists from the symbols. And then somebody else who also not of Ghanaian origin, but from the diaspora for sure, who is taken the term to then create something new. And I know that it started off as like a music conversation, and for sure we see like the microaggressions of appropriation more regularly, but then how often are we like tapping into the if it's not appropriating, is it sampling, is it like adapting into making something? But for sure, yeah, the festival space is more celebrated by the white dons that want to like pint and party, but we can take over these spaces and build new ones.
Right. Thank you for that, man. Did you put that in the Discord yet, or are you going to?
Yeah, it's making its way in.
Okay, thank you, man. I appreciate that, man. It's very interesting.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Brent,
people.
I'm sorry. Can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
Because I just saw a comment in the chat that needs to be highlighted.
Okay.
Black Lad Travel said something earlier about listening to Black Americans speak when Black people failed over there. Speaks to my whole subgenre thing a little bit. Like, we can acknowledge that as things originate places with certain people and subcultures are created from that. But I just think it's a very weird take and speaks to how Black people feel like Black people from other countries, other cultures look down on them. And by Black people, I mean African Americans, when people say shit like that. Like these, the same people from different countries are the same people who model things after hip hop culture, are inspired by African American culture, and then say things like that. Like,
sorry to cut you. All I was going to say is, Brent, E-Man, I think that would be a good topic of the day that we should have, because I've definitely got my thoughts on that, particularly with Kendrick's They Not Like Us song. But yeah, okay. I think that should be something that we discuss in further detail.
Well, as in what Stacey's talking about, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
About Black Americans versus the rest of the world. Black people from the rest of the world, should I say.
I'm scared a lot of people are going to get canceled, but let's go for it.
All right. And I think also in that same topic, we can put in what Maggie suggested as well. She said, let's move on to how we can gatekeep and monetize and benefit from our own culture. You know what I'm saying? So at least we provided some solutions to this as well. So yeah, man. But yes, Stacey, do you finish what you're saying?
Yeah, but I think what you just said would be a good ending note. Like, I can go, but does anyone else want to share ways that we can gatekeep and monetize as like a positive ending?
I mean, we may have to do that on a different day, maybe tomorrow, because there's a lot more to the show. We got amazing guests here as well.
Thank you very much, Stacey and Ebony and Demi and David and Bathroom Diaries.
Thank you very much.
And let me just say quickly, sorry, I'm going to get off, but Stacey, we can agree to disagree, and it was nothing that was solely directed at you. A debate is a debate, a debate is healthy. So that's all I wanted to leave it on before, because I haven't seen the chat, so I don't know if anybody's thinking that I'm coming at you in any particular way. So it was just saying, from my side, it's all love, yeah?
Beautiful, beautiful.
I appreciate it. One thing about me, I take what you're saying, and I'm someone who I acknowledge passion. I acknowledge like when someone's like really into something and someone wants to really get their point across, and I just take it at what you're trying to say. I don't take offense to it at all. Like, we're all passionate about our points, and it makes for good content. And that's why we come here every morning. So go for it. No harm, no foul.
Beautiful, beautiful.
All right, big up everybody, says. I'll see you lot soon.
Thank you.
The one who said crickets,
right. Greg, you're starting.
That's Stacey's cheeky for that one. All right, later.
All right,
man. Thanks a lot, guys. All right, Brent.
Yes.
Let's move into our headlines.
Into the headlines. Let me just take this off the screen. All righty. Doop.
All right, before we go into headlines, just want to say good morning to our wonderful guest. Oh, you got your mic. There you go. Sorry.
Crispy, as in a good way, not dry.
No.
Okay.
All right. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you very much. We're obviously going to get into why you're here and
Sure.
everything, right?
Okay.
But people, this is Sasha. So, yeah, we're going to get into that. So, our next headline, trigger warning on this one. Big trigger warning, guys. The veteran BBC broadcaster, 62 years old, Huw Edwards, previously admitted 3 charges of making indecent photographs after he was sent 41 illegal images by convicted paedophile Alex Williams over WhatsApp. 7 of the indecent images shared with Edwards by Williams, who's a 25-year-old, by the way, were of category A, which is the most serious type. Of those images, the estimated age of most of the children was between 13 and 15, but one was aged between 7 and 9. Also, among the 377 sexual images discovered by police sent to Edwards by Williams between December 2020 and August of 2021 were 12 Category B images and 22 Category C images. Edwards of Wandsworth, South West London, was sentenced to 6 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years at Westminster Magistrates Court yesterday on Monday, following his guilty pleas in July. Next headline, trigger warning on this one as well. And a body has been found in the search for a missing 18-year-old in the Scottish borders. Camille Gimbutier, definitely butchering the name, also known as Rianne, was last seen in the Melrose area at around 2 p.m. on Sunday and was believed to have been going for a walk in the Eildon Hills. In an update in the afternoon, the force said that a body had been recovered from that same area. Formal identification is yet to take place, but the teenager's family has been informed. And the last headline, a missile fired by Yemen's Iran-backed rebels landed in an open area in central Israel early Sunday and triggered air raid sirens at its international airport in the latest reverberation from the nearly year-long war in Gaza. Israel obviously hinted that it would respond militarily. There were no reports of casualties or major damage, but Israeli media aired footage showing people racing to shelters in the Ben Gurion International Airport. The airport authority said that it resumed normal operations shortly thereafter. A fire could be seen in a rural area of central Israel, and local media showed images of what appeared to be a fragment from an interceptor that landed on an escalator in a train station in the central town of Modin. The Yemen rebels, known as the Houthis, have repeatedly fired drones and missiles toward Israel since the start of the war in Gaza between Israel and the Palestinian group Hamas, but nearly all of them have been intercepted over the Red Sea. And that's it for our headlines. It's time to pay them bills. But let's go into People's Journal. All right, people. Welcome to the People's Journal, where I give you the news from an economics point of view. There ain't much to today's People's Journal. Just wanted to say that Amazon, they're back in the news, man. People have been protesting against them over previous changes to working from home. But Amazon have basically come out and said, listen, staff, if you still want a job, you need to be back in the office 5 days a week. You know what I'm saying? They basically ended their hybrid work policy. So the change will come into force from January. This is what the chief executive of Amazon said, Andy Jassy. He basically sent out a memo to all staff. And this is what he said. He said, we've decided that we're going to return to being in office the way we were before the onset of COVID. He also added that it would help staff be better set up to invent, collaborate, and be connected enough to each other. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, this particular guy, he's already been known to be one of those skeptics of remote working. I think Elon Musk was like that as well, Brent? Yeah, I think we mentioned this before, because I think he was closing down a couple of his places as well, and basically just urging people to basically come in. But anyway, that's what Amazon is saying, man. They're trying to get corporate staff back into the office, and yeah, that's been a source of tension within the firm, which employs about 1.5 million people globally. 1.5 million employees, you know. That's in full-time and part-time roles. But yeah, that's what they're saying. Next thing is Meta, which is obviously the conglomerate that owns Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram and all that. They're saying that they're banning several Russian state media networks, alleging that they're using deceptive tactics to carry out influence operations and evade detection on all of its platforms. So this is what Meta have come out and said. They said, after careful consideration, we expanded our ongoing enforcement against Russian state media outlets. They mentioned a couple of names, Rossiya Segundia, and RT, and other related entities are now all banned from our apps globally for foreign interference activities. The bans are expected to come into effect in the next few days, people. But yeah, that's what Meta is saying. So they're putting more pressure on these Russian outlets. And the last thing I want to mention, it isn't really economics related, but like I always say, economics is life and life is economics. Everything's related to economics. But this is basically about the legendary Labour MP Diane Abbott. She had an interview and she basically came out and accused Sir Starmer of treating her, in her words, as a non-person. Right? This is during obviously the row over the racist comments, so-called racist comments that are made about her. Sorry, I thought this was about something else. Basically, about the racist comments, most definitely.
It's glitched in real time.
Do you know what it is? I thought it was a racist, what they were calling comments, what they were saying were racist, her comments about the whole differentiation between the travellers and black people in it. But yeah, this is basically about the Tory donor, who obviously was a bona fide racist, or is. So this is about Frank Hester, for those who don't know, who, basically had to sit down with these people, and it emerged in March. We spoke about this, obviously, and basically said that she should be shot for her views, basically, man. And she obviously come out and she said it made her feel in danger, and she expected more support from her party. And I think majority of us agreed with that, man. And this is why I was saying to people, man, I don't understand why you feel like Labour is your saviour if they can't even defend the first black female MP this country has ever had. What does that tell you about you? Regular black folk. But yeah, that's all I wanted to basically say. So the interview was done with BBC Newsnight. So if you're interested, check it out. And yeah, man, she also claimed that her suspension from Labour last year over the alleged anti-Semitic comments was a move against me. This is what she's saying, was a move against her. And that Sir Starmer wanted to finish his clear out of the Labour left. You know what I'm saying? Which is interesting, because I think Brent, you was mentioning as well, maybe a week or so ago, about how Starmer came in trying to appease the left, innit? When he was under Corbyn. But obviously, that was just to get them on his side to be elected as his replacement. And then now he's moved to the real position that is what he is today, basically, as more so of a centrist. But yeah, long story short, that is it for the People's Journal. Let's get into our interview. All right, people. So like I said earlier, we have an amazing guest today. A very, I want to say unique, yeah. And you're going to understand why I use that word, right? Because what she does is by definition, basically.
By definition.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Very unique and something that we really need to hear about. The story as well, everything is like, yeah. So I'm just going to allow Sasha to please introduce herself.
Okay.
Yes.
So my name is Sasha Henriques. I'm a principal genetic counsellor and a PhD researcher at Cambridge. Around genetics and equity is kind of my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Brent needs to put the mic a bit
It's
closer.
not good. It's not good.
There we go.
I never normally need a mic closer to me, so you will pull it away again a bit later.
All right, then. All right, so before we get into actually what that means, yeah,
Sure.
we usually play a game with all of our
Okay.
guests, right? Obviously, you weren't told about this
No.
for good reason, right?
Right.
And basically, it's just it's called 140. We asked a series of questions of 140 tempo beat. You don't have to rap or nothing.
Thank goodness.
Some of the questions are like preference questions, so
Okay.
kind of like I don't know, this or that, whatever.
Sure.
And some are actually general knowledge, have real answers. Yes, and there is a leaderboard.
Wow.
So yes, yeah. Are you ready?
Well, let's do it.
All right then. So Brent, when you're ready, please.
Remember, if you don't know it, just say pass
Yes.
so we can move on to the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
There will be a lot of
secret,
passes. Nerves.
All right.
Oh, also the preference questions.
Yeah.
You get 1 mark for.
Oh, you get a mark just for making a preference.
Exactly.
That's going to be where my marks are.
The other ones, you get 3 points. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
Yes. Remember, you're basically operating in Cambridge. So
Are they going to be about Cambridge?
No, I'm expecting a certain level.
Okay, because we're going to get into my relationship with Cambridge
All
later.
right,
So,
then.
like,
All right then. All right. So Brent, when you're ready,
All right. 3,
60 seconds.
2, 1.
A saddlery sells items for the use of what animal? A saddlery.
Horses.
What are the first letters of the word xylophone?
XYL.
Okay. Knowledge or power?
Knowledge.
Who's the British actress known for her role as Hermione Granger in Harry Potter?
Oh, Emma something. Watkins Watson.
Who's a British author known for the book Noughts and Crosses?
Oh, Mallory Blackman.
Love or lust?
Love.
Who helped Malcolm X write his autobiography?
Pass.
Gillian Joseph presents the news at 10 on what platform?
I don't know, ITV?
Online or in-store?
Online.
What's the capital city of Ireland?
Dublin?
What British filmmaker directed 12 Years a Slave?
Pass.
Hardbacks or audiobooks?
Audio.
Who founded the UNIA?
Pass. Oh, no. Marcus Garvey.
Yes. Where's Haiti?
Where's Haiti?
Yeah.
In the Caribbean?
Hey,
Hey, you started off strong.
I'm telling you.
Well done.
I'm impressed.
A lot of pointless with my nan.
I'm impressed, you know. I can't wait to actually do the scores and see what you did. But
Yeah.
I think you did really well. And I'm glad you went back for the Marcus Garvey.
I
one
know.
as well.
I said pass. I'm like, why am I saying pass? I know that.
This is going to be interesting. Sace's record at the top, maybe. Let me not speak too soon.
Nah.
Nah,
That's
calm down,
untouched.
calm down.
Don't do that.
But yes, all right. Again, Sasha, thank you so much for coming in
No problem.
and speaking to us. Please, again, tell the people what you do, and then let's get into what it actually means.
So my profession is that I'm a genetic counsellor, principal genetic counsellor. But what I'm doing right now is PhD research.
Okay.
And so I work clinically with patients who have genetic conditions, but my research is working with actual researchers kind of about their behaviour and the choices that they make. So it's like social science is my research.
Is that research linked to the genetics as well, though?
So everything I do is about genetics. The research is linked in that I've always had questions about my patients and where we get information about how to treat the patients. And that comes from research. And so then my research led me to, well, why don't I think about a different part of the journey of that knowledge and how it gets to the clinic? And so, yes, they're related, but they're very separate things. One is about in the hospital and one is about in the labs before we even get knowledge in the hospitals.
Because when you mentioned the whole social science, I was thinking, are you basically saying some of our actions is linked to, or you are saying that?
So the social science is the method.
Okay.
So the scientists in the lab are absolutely doing genetic science in the lab. What I'm thinking about is the way that you do science, the questions that you ask, even the things that you choose to research, there's a social structure around that. And some of those social structures are kind of racism and power and all of those things. So does the way that a scientist does their work affect the equity of the genetics that we use on the ground, the tests that we actually use for patients? So it's the social science of how they behave.
Okay. And obviously, you're basically saying it does affect it. And so you're setting out ways to kind of show and prove this.
Yeah, it's not a position of neutrality.
Yeah.
Which, that's essentially why I've come to that, because from experience, I know that we don't live in a neutral world, and that even if you want to do something that you think is as objective as science, there are still people doing the science. So how does that affect the type of science that we do, and therefore how that science is used for different people, particularly people who look like me?
What would you say to somebody that says to you, okay, cool, I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
but is your attempt now to try and do the opposite of what they're doing? What makes you the authority to make it neutral? If that makes sense.
I don't think I'm trying to make it neutral.
Okay.
I think I'm trying to platform where I'm being transparent about where that neutrality doesn't exist and the effect that it has.
Okay.
So there are lots of institutions that would like to write equity policy, EDI policy about what should happen, but without understanding actually how scientists are kind of challenged and what they do and how those systems actually affect them. You're just writing paper for writing paper's sake. You can write strategy all day long. Culture will always win. So I just feel like culture is the thing that you have to think about first before you think about effective strategies to make things fairer.
So you feel like it's imperative for people like us to be in those spaces to kind of inform certain things there. So what would you say to somebody who then says, okay, cool, I think the best way is to separate and do our own thing? You know what I'm saying? As opposed to actually trying to be part of the system that doesn't really want us there.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. And because I have a scientist mind, I want evidence of all of those things. So I'm not saying that position is wrong. It may be right. It may be right in particular circumstances. So I need to understand all of that to talk about when that's right and when that's not. There's a lot of work around gathering African DNA. And so some of that objective is get African scientists to do that because of the history of exploitation. So there are absolutely places where these need to be self-owned, self-governed, and there are other places where we need collaboration or we will be left behind. So it's about kind of understanding the lay of how that works rather than saying that this research will give me a solution for when you absolutely do this or when you absolutely do that.
So what is that? And this question may seem silly, right?
Yeah.
But what does it look like to say, let's get the Africans involved? The reason why I'm saying that is because we live in the day and time where an African could look like anything.
Sure.
They could be obviously what they are, blacks. They could be Arab. They could be white even in South Africa. And you worked in South Africa.
I did, yes.
All right then. So is their opinion just as valid? Or is it specific to black Africans that you're talking about?
This is such a good question because when I was listening to the segment earlier, that was talking about music, doing this work kind of raises these exact same conversations about where are the boundaries of culture, race, and identity. And we are challenged with that all the time because of our history as black people and as African people. Where do we draw those lines around who should be in the conversation, who is not? When is that based on what you look like? When is that based on what your DNA ancestry test says? Right. So that nuance of what that means, I think, is really important. And so we talk about it in different ways. And so a lot of my research is about categories, about like what categories are you using? Who are you calling a population? Who are you calling African? Who are you calling African American? And so science doesn't even get that right, which is part of the research. And we struggle with that as well. And that's why these conversations are always so difficult and so complex. So in some ways, sometimes we talk about things like sub-Saharan Africa, people might refer to. Or sometimes we might go down to different levels, like talking about kind of Nigerian or Ugandan. There's lots of research that shows that research projects will use African American data. It has very little relevance to populations in Uganda. So this idea that you have black data or African data when we are so diverse is actually not really sensible and it's not scientific. When you're talking socially and culturally about whose voice is important, then yes, if you are a culture that is mixed and blended of many different tribes and people like South Africa might be, then actually there might be something that they want to say about South Africa and their story that all of them talk about, but there might be parts of that actually know the native indigenous people of that land talk about, or the Bantu populations that moved into that area before the European populations came. Maybe it's about them talking about it. So there are lots of different ways. And how people are funded as well speaks to that as well. So we often talk about whether people are kind of born in particular countries, whether they would get particular funding and be seen as kind of African scientists. How you look would never be used.
Expand on that though. Because, say that last point again.
Yeah, how you look would, I mean, we pseudo use it, I think, because as soon as we say African or Caribbean or whatever, I think people assume the way that we look. But I don't think anybody could ever write on a policy that you need to prove who your Africanness or your blackness based on what you looked like. I think there are assumptions made all the time. And that's a lot of what my work is about, are those assumptions that people make based on what you look like, what that actually says about your genetics. So
in terms of the funding though, so could that mean that somebody who just claims to be African, so let's just say, I don't know, Sally moves to Nigeria, has kids with Keith, in Nigeria, same ethnicity, same English, but now has a Nigerian passport, would there be scrutiny like with their child's Africanness, if that makes sense?
But the child who's born in Nigeria?
Yeah.
If a child is born in Nigeria and racialized as black in Nigeria, then I don't think there would be much scrutiny. But there might be something about that funding that's about kind of socioeconomic group as well as that. So again, that's what I mean, that it probably wouldn't come up against it that much because the socioeconomic group of somebody who could move to Nigeria and have kids is at the same type of funding as somebody who kind of grew up in a small village just outside Accra. Like those might be very different people looking for mobility in different ways.
This is interesting. How did you even get into this field?
So I laugh because I was a problem for my family, I think, because I changed my mind about 100 million different times of all the things I wanted to do. So I have always been interested in science.
All right.
And my mum was always kind of a supporter of that as well, which is why I like the Marcus Garvey question, because my mum always spoke about kind of tenets of societies and what black people needed to be excellent at. And so she was very proud to have, daughters who were thinking about construction and engineering and software and science, and she's an educator. So so I had that support from very early on with kind of science. But also I wanted people to understand science so that they could use it to empower their own lives. And that was kind of always my thing. I didn't really want to be in a lab. I realized very early on, actually, I want to talk about science. I want to make people excited about science. I want to make science feel like a space that we do belong in and that we can take part in, understand and make informed choices with. So I wanted to be a journalist before, a science journalist. So I did undergrad in biology and then I did my first master's in science communication.
Okay.
So I learned about talking about science and semiotics and science fiction and all of those things because I thought I was going to be on Tomorrow's World. And,
Semiotics, what's that?
So it is the study of signs and kind of the messages that you can portray by the signs that you use when you speak. So either the types of words or the colours that font are in and those types of things. So it's the message underneath the message. And so that happens a lot in things like media, in news reports, propaganda, all of those things, that there's a huge science behind actually how do you get somebody to respond to a message in a particular way. That's not just about the words that you use, it's about kind of how you use them and what feelings you might emote from the way that you talk about things. So communications was kind of always my thing. And then I worked for charities, again, charities who were supporting families who had children with long-term health conditions. So at that point, I knew about what a genetic counsellor did.
Okay.
Because I was telling people about it, like, oh, your child has this condition, it's a genetic condition. You should probably go and see a genetic counsellor to talk to you more about that and further testing in your family. And then I met somebody who was one and they spoke to me and said that my skill but also my passion aligned with that job type. As I went back to school again, I did a master's in genetic counselling, and then that's how I became a genetic counsellor.
Wow.
And I was 30 at that point, so people thought the education was done, and I decided to go back again. And now here I am again. Yeah.
Two things, yeah.
Sure.
I was obviously on your website reading, and you mentioned something along the lines of preventing, predicting, and managing genetic conditions, right?
Yes.
In a healthcare setting isn't always fair, right? Can you give me an example of a genetic condition that you can prevent?
Yeah.
You can kind of predict and kind of manage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about, let's start with prevention.
Okay.
We might be talking about the fact that we are aware of a genetic condition that you are at risk of.
Okay.
And what are the options for you to have a child that doesn't have the same genetic condition?
Yeah.
So those are ways that genetic conditions can kind of be prevented.
Okay.
Is that you might have two parents who carry a genetic condition between the two of them, and they're healthy, but if they have a child together, there's a chance that the child would have the condition. And so we have different options for how would you have a child that doesn't have the condition. So do you adopt? Do you have egg donation? Do you have sperm donation? Do you have IVF with a genetic test? Those types of things. So there are ways of stopping the disease from going any further in your family in that way.
Okay.
There are other ways where you might stop the symptoms of the genetic condition. So you might have a particular gene that increases your risk of particular types of cancer. So particular types of kind of breast or ovarian cancer, for instance. So you have the genetic test and you know that your risk is 60% of breast and 40% risk of ovarian once you reach the age of 40. But you have that information now. So you can take chemo prevention type medication, or you might have surgery. So you might say, I've completed my children, I'm going to remove my ovaries. And then by removing your ovaries, you've now removed the risk of you having ovarian cancer. So those are kind of some of the, I guess, prevention ways.
So to cut you.
Yeah.
This is why I was saying to you people, I'm looking up there at the camera.
I know, I'm like looking at you like, where do I look?
This is why I was saying this is so unique and so important. Because I feel as though, who does that? Who actually takes the time? Don't get me wrong, I do know that obviously there's certain environments, even churches, that may be like, okay, cool, you guys are dating, let's get you tested, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But who is actually saying, cool, obviously I'm not a woman, so I don't know, but thinking, okay, cool, the chances of this happening to me post 50, post 60.
Sure.
So I'm going to do this to prevent this. And like in my head.
How do you get there?
Yeah.
Okay, I could talk about that. Yeah. So I guess the important thing is I've used 2 examples of genetic conditions. Yeah. Last guess, there's probably about 8,000 genetic conditions. So part of my job as a genetic counsellor is not to know every single genetic condition, but is to know that different genetic conditions get passed on in families in different ways. And so my skill is to quickly understand about that genetic condition, how it might be passed on, and help someone who has no genetics knowledge to understand that. How you get to me, though, comes through different ways. So it may be that as a couple, the woman is pregnant, you have your routine scans, have your routine screening, and something says, oh, this is high risk. Let's do a further test because there might be a high risk of Down syndrome. And then you do that test and you find out in that pregnancy that actually this is a pregnancy affected with that condition. So you find out about a genetic condition in pregnancy. That might be when you talk to a genetic counsellor about, okay, well, what are the choices that I have now? What am I going to do now? You might come to me because you have a family history of sickle cell. So you know there are lots of people in your family with sickle cell, or you're from a part of the world where lots of people are at risk of sickle cell. And so you may already have that knowledge, and so you want to know, well, what is my genetic status and would there be a risk? You might get that test done in your local community environment if you live in certain parts of Nigeria, for instance. So you grew up with that information. And then you might come and see a genetic counsellor or a sickle cell counsellor and talk about, well, I know that I'm a carrier and so is my partner, so what are my options? Cancer, you may again have a family history of cancer. So you may turn up to your GP and say, do you know what, my mum died of breast cancer at 40, her sister died of breast cancer at 35, what is going on in my family? And so they will then refer you to a genetic counsellor. I will draw a family tree. I'll ask about the history of the cancer. We work out whether that looks like it could be a genetic reason, and then we think about what tests you should have. You might have an eye condition. Your eye doctor says, this actually looks like a genetic one. You go and see a genetic counsellor. It might be a heart condition. It might be. So any bit of medicine, there are conditions that are kind of what we call multifactorial, which just means many causes. And then there are conditions that are genetic as well. So in all different kind of bits of medicine, you might find conditions that are very specifically caused by a gene or a genetic change, and then that's how they kind of end up to us. So we wouldn't say you just walk around and decide that you want to have a genetic test for a thing that there's no indication for.
Do you think it would be a prudent thing for us to start doing, though?
There are two thoughts around this, because as genetic technology has got really good. So before we just couldn't do that. So you would see a genetics specialist, a counsellor, or a doctor, and we would have to do all of that like Cluedo work to figure out, okay, it's so expensive, but this is the gene that I want to test because I've asked all the other questions, done all the other tests. And now the genetic technology is so good that you could just sample someone's entire genome and be like, okay, I'm going to look and see if there's any mistake in there. And then I'm going to tell them, okay, you've got a risk of this and you've got a risk of that. It's really easy to do that. It's really hard to interpret it, like data. The analysis of that, the amount of data that's generated from that is huge. So the analysis itself is huge. And then sometimes we're not entirely sure. We might get a thing that we don't really know the answer to. You may raise someone's anxiety over something that you can't really explain. So there are some people that are like, just do all my DNA, give me a huge file with all of my information on it. I want my genetic information and I'll get somebody to interpret it. That's harder than you think. But from a genetic counsellor perspective, because I think about the thoughts, the feelings, your faith, your morals, whether you're going to share the information with your family, how that's going to affect you. Like, it's not just the science for me, it's how you deal with that. Getting a random piece of genetic information and you've got no one to talk to about it fills me with horror because that's just not what I do. I think that the conversation goes along with doing the genetics. And so unless there's a risk, I don't think you should go searching for things that would make you more anxious when we might be able to do very little about them.
Makes sense. Do you ever... I'm glad you mentioned the whole morals and faith stuff here, because have you been in a situation where you're talking to somebody who, for example, you know, God forbid, I don't know, their mum passed away at 40 or 50, like you said, from cancer. Their auntie did this, that, and the third. And this person saying to you, listen, I don't really want to be here. I know somebody in the village is behind this curse, right? But you're saying it's genetic. Like, how do you cross that? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you cross that bridge?
These are regular conversations for all as genetic counselors. This is our bread and butter. Like, this is the bigger part of the job than actually the 8,000 genetic conditions that I need to understand. It's how do I engage with a person who has a belief system that may be different from the information that I'm trying to give them, that is trying to make sense of what has happened to them in a way that they can live their life. Me taking away your belief system might not be the best thing to help you live your life. So that's what part of that conversation is about understanding you and your belief system, why you need it, what you're using it for, giving you an alternative, maybe, to, okay, well, this is how you explain it in your way. This is how we explain it. And seeing whether there are any crossovers, blends, anything that can help them for that information. And sometimes it happens. Like, I have brought, people who've had a strong Muslim faith. They've taken my information and they're like, I'm not really sure where that stands with my faith. And then I'm like, why don't we arrange for you to talk to an imam? They talk about the Islam with the imam, they come back, they talk to me, and then we come to a decision that helps them. And so that decision may be one that I've given them that they want to take. It may be one that they've decided. It may be to terminate a pregnancy. It may be to continue with a pregnancy. And I have to be okay with all of those things because it's you that has to live that life. Working in Africa and working in the UK, you can imagine where I got more of the conversations about who put muti on who in the family and where that came from. And I don't need to believe it. I need to understand it. And sometimes there's such good information in there. So I said I take family histories. Sometimes without having that conversation, I can't understand your family history in this very Eurocentric way of understanding the family history. I need to know about who died in their sleep or who died of a broken heart or who put what and so and then all their kids died when they were babies. Because that's how you've described that and it's true. But I have a different understanding of what might be the basis of those things. And am I talking about somebody who had fertility problems or somebody who had a genetic problem that meant that their children all died young or somebody who had a cardiac condition and that meant there was a risk of sudden cardiac death. And that's why when they were traumatized, they had a heart attack and died. So it's really important and that's where I think that the benefit of who I am doing the job,
Yep.
means that I can open up those conversations in ways that people who have different frames of reference might not do. So when you spoke about things not being fair, these are one of the ways that can affect clinical care. Is because there's no cultural competency about who you're talking to often when you're in professions when they aren't very diverse. So those are one of the ways in which that disparity with how patients are treated can happen.
This is amazing. So, I heard what you said, right? You have to understand it. You don't have to necessarily believe it. But do you believe it?
Do I believe what?
You-
Which one? I said a few things.
Mutu.
Muti, I think there are things in this life that we do not understand.
Yeah.
Even with genetics, like you talk about genetics and people think, oh, that's like some futuristic science that has all the answers. Genetics is probability most of the time. You know, I'm never really giving a black and white. I'm telling you, it's a 60% chance. That means there's a 40% chance that it's not. And I don't know why it's not, right? So even something, I think one of your guests said, truth is truth, even maths. Maths is context specific,
Talk
right?
to-
Time and space. So even when we talk about physics, we talk about, you have to give a parameter, the law of relativity in this space. So that's the way I think about everything, is that's why I don't have to believe it or disprove it, because I don't have the authority to say that you're wrong. I'm just telling you that in my frame of reference, this is what I think. These are the solutions based on the evidence I have. This would be the course of action that I would talk about. But if you want to tell me that actually there is something else that you have evidence of that believes better than what I've said, I've given you the information, I've done my job, and you've made a decision that you can live with.
Beautiful. So what I've gauged from what you've responded is I need to ask you the question off air.
Sorry. You want me to lose my job?
All right. I just want to do what I can do. I got it.
Gosh.
I got it.
Big mic in my face and everything.
I mean, sorry.
I do want to ask you something, because somebody
Sure.
in the chat said, can we ask what Sasha's thoughts on genetic engineering
Sure.
is in a sense of trying to remove certain diseases from an unborn child?
Yes. Really important question, because we were talking about prevention.
Yes.
And we spoke about one type of prevention. This is another type of prevention.
Okay.
So there's technology which has been developed, and this technology can kind of read the genetic code.
Okay.
And if there's a glitch in that genetic code that we know that causes a disease or a condition, that can be kind of repaired, like snipped out of the genetic code. So your genetic code is essentially, visually, it's a string of numbers. It's actually a string of kind of chemicals. But if you think about like a written code, there's a spelling mistake in that word. There's technology that could remove that spelling mistake. And then therefore, when the body then tries to process, that mistake doesn't exist anymore and it processes fine, right? So that's one way of preventing a genetic condition. At the moment, there are very few conditions that we can do that for, but it's increasing. And at the moment, we have really strict laws about when we can do that.
Okay.
So the Human Embryology and Fertilization Association are the ones who govern kind of the rules on this. And in the UK, you cannot use that technology, I think it's before 14 days on an embryo.
Okay.
Right, so you can only do it once that embryo has been created. You don't do it on what we call the germ cells, so the cells that make the embryo. You don't do it on those cells. So we haven't, as far as science is concerned, you're not allowed to do that. There was a very well-known case with a scientist in China who did this technology, and twins were born from this technology.
Wow.
He went to a science conference, I think it was 2018 or something, went to a science conference, told everyone, blasé, like, yeah, this is what I did. And the scientific community were like appalled and outraged. He went to jail, not exactly for that, because the laws were not written right. It was all to do with kind of other ethics about what he did. So still as a scientific community, doing it on the germline is something that we haven't tackled. I was recently part of a citizens jury, which is where you get members of the public to talk about controversial issues. And so we've had citizens juries on gay marriages, citizens juries on climate control. I was part of a citizens jury that was about genome editing in the germline. And we used, as experts by profession, were families who actually experience serious genetic conditions. Because we feel, or I feel even as a community, that if we were ever to use that technology, the place that would be most acceptable is families who are affected by very serious genetic conditions that have no other hope. And so the conversation was kind of around that, and about whether they felt that this should be technology that should be allowed. And I was kind of in alignment with some of the views that some of the participants had, particularly there was one participant who was, I think she was Ghanaian and a sickle cell sufferer herself. And lots of questions about what is the equity that we have in how genetic technology is used now before we keep inventing genetic technologies that increase the disparity between who can access it and who not. So for me, it's not so much about the technology, it's about whether society is ready to accept the technology. There are all sorts of things that we use now that we thought were just some crazy devil work that we wouldn't have done before. And if we have been ordained the knowledge, it's about how do we use the knowledge responsibly. And I'm not sure if we're in a responsible place to use that knowledge. That technology has been developed for sickle cell, for instance, and we still have huge kind of systemic problems about treatment getting equitably to people who are sufferers of sickle cell. And that's not just about the genetics, that's about the systematic racism around health and disease and genetics. So it was a really long answer. It's not the technology itself that I have the problem with. It's about the morals and ethics of who does it and who does it when and how we use it.
Well, to kind of use that example of sickle cell.
Yes.
Since that is a condition that predominantly affects, Black people, what would be the potential problems that you have with it? Like, surely it would be, for example, us, or well, not necessarily yourself, I guess.
What do you mean problems? As in physical problems, or what other system problems?
Yeah, the system problems.
So there are a few things that I think have always been really interesting to people when I talk about sickle cell, particularly as Black people, when we start talking about what do we mean by Black. So who is at risk of sickle cell? People who have ancestry from the west of Africa, where the malaria belt was.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So we're talking about Caribbean, we're talking about African American, we're talking about kind of West and Central Africans. I worked in South Africa, not a single patient that I saw, a sickle cell patient, was actually from the southern part of Africa because they don't have malaria there. So historically, they never developed this carrier defense against sickle cell. So again, this pejorative thinking that, it's a Black person's condition. Yes, predominantly the way that we look has something to do with it, but actually there's another reason why it's people from those parts of the world. I say that so it's not only Black people that get sickle cell, right? And sickle cell is not the only genetic condition that we get. So there's those two things that we need to understand. But because of that perception, those are the things that then start to affect how somebody with sickle cell is perceived and treated. So if you speak to people in America and in the UK who have sickle cell and have sickle cell in their family, they talk about being denied pain treatment because people have a perception that Black people get addicted to these drugs more than other people get addicted to these drugs. They have people ignoring the pain that they're at because there is a perception that has been written in medical textbooks historically that somehow our pain threshold is different. So there are all these ways that aren't about the condition itself, but they're about the way that you are believed, the way that you are managed, the funding that goes into the research to cure your condition or find treatments for your condition is different based on what you look like and how you're perceived. So, the sickle cell community and sickle cell society have done lots of kind of work and lots of reports kind of over this about all the different discrepancies that they have because of the encounter of the genetic condition and how they are racialized.
I want to ask a question. Well, I want to ask a question about that again, but
Yeah.
somebody else, so I don't forget. Is there a link between G6PD deficiency and sickle cell?
I don't know if there's a close link between the two. I think the link is the historical link because of where they predominate in the world.
Okay.
So all populations will have genetic conditions that are more prevalent in their populations for particular reasons. And so, as I said, sickle cell became more prevalent in that part of the world because having a trait was protective of that condition.
yeah.
And there were lots of other genetic conditions that we kind of know that there must be some protective reason why everybody in that part of the world seems to kind of be carriers of that condition. So cystic fibrosis happens kind of mainly in kind of Europe and Asian populations. In Jewish populations, they have conditions called kind of Tay-Sachs and things that kind of predominate in their places. And G6PD is one of those that is in that same population. It's also a condition that affects the blood. So I don't know if they are genetically linked because they're in two different places in the genetic code. Like the glitch is in two different places. They're independent. But it wouldn't be a great thing if they exist together, I would imagine, because they cause kind of similar problems. Although G6PD is a lot easier to manage than sickle cell, but I would imagine there's probably a cumulative effect in how it might affect people who already have a disorder that's about kind of how the blood carries oxygen.
Thank you for the answer. I wanted to ask you, because I do want to kind of... So we got something on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, can we ask if the guest thinks there are any genetic benefits of being with people outside of your race? Example, genetic diversity.
Right, so it's a good question. And the simple answer is yes, because that's how race, but we're going to come back to race. The simple answer is yes, genetic diversity is how the human population, regardless of how you want to define race, it's how we survive, it's how the mechanics of genetics works. So you have two parents, and one makes an egg, one makes a sperm. Half your genetic material goes into the egg, half goes into the sperm. And then when you make a child, they kind of jumble up, what we call recombination, and then they make you. That whole process is about improving diversity in the offspring, right? So just the process of sexual reproduction is about improving genetic diversity. So that's really, really important. If you have people who are too closely related, and I mean really closely related, like parents and siblings, you have large runs of bits of DNA that are exactly the same. They don't have this diversity from two different parents, and that can cause problems. These runs of homozygosity is what they call it. So we can see already in just a very small group that if you don't have enough diversity in your genes, it causes problems. How we define race is really interesting because we don't define, it is impossible to define race using genetics, I think is the thing to say, because race is a social construct that was devised based on how people looked and attached behaviours to how they look to forward a political agenda.
I think that's one of the best definitions I've heard. I agree, every part of that.
So because you start with that, before you start doing the genetic studies to look at what people like, then what happens is people are like, oh, when we do these genetic tests, they're going to show these 5 groups or 7 groups that we said existed. And then you do the research and you're like, no, it doesn't. Like, actually, it shows a lot more than we thought. It showed that people are actually much more similar than we thought, that most of the DNA, regardless of what you look like, is exactly the same. And there are very small bits that are very distinct and different to different populations. The most interesting thing about that, and this is where the disparity comes in again, the most interesting thing about that is populations that are the oldest have the most diversity because they've been around the longest. Where are the populations that are the oldest?
South Africa.
They are in Africa. So when we talk about, is it good for diversity? Yeah, you could just do that within Africa and you would have diversity. It would have nothing to do with how you looked. You could just do as we did, move from south to north and east to west, and that created the wonderful array of diversity that we have in Africa.
Are you listening, guys?
So I don't think that this very small blip in human development that created some changes in skin colour is the bit of diversity that's going to give you a superpowered child. So there's that. The real life ramifications that has, though, is that historically, lots of that research, because they thought it was a lot simpler than it was done on European populations where the least diversity exists.
Yep.
So the knowledge of actually what is all the capability of our genome is very limited because it's only at one end.
Yeah.
And what that means is if you come from a population that hasn't been as well described because of the social history, when you come to see a clinician like me, it's much more likely for those people from those populations, Native, Indigenous, African, Latin, that if they have a test, they get, remember I said you could have a test and we just don't really know what the information means?
Yeah.
That would happen more in those populations. So that's the other area of disparity, is that the knowledge about the DNA in the very diverse populations is actually inverse.
Yeah.
And so it means it has a clinical impact. You may not get a good explanation about what's going on genetically. Things haven't been developed, treatments and management on particular genetic changes haven't been developed for you because all of that information is kind of yet to be discovered for lots of our populations.
A blip. That was to describe.
You're picking up on that.
Yeah, because I think the person who asked the question, they were just talking about, like, are we down to swirly, innit? And how you got
it's swirling the answer.
That's what they're asking.
I mean, again, you know, when I talk about like politically motivated agendas,
Well, you said you like
there
to
is
talk.
this idea that somehow a beige future is the best future, and I'm just it's irrelevant. Like I just genetically speaking, no, I can't give you validation for what you may choose to do based on a genetic reason. That is
Okay.
it's just that's a drop in the ocean of the things that we should be talking about.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
So you're in support of people like Imal to stop talking about, like, keep it in your own because you like the whole thing.
That's not true.
These are just blips, man.
Let's not go too far, right? What I'm saying is there's a difference between, right? So there's a difference between, and this is what touched on the conversation before that I thought was like so interesting, because again, it's about how do you define the boundaries of your culture, your race, and your identity?
Yeah.
When genetics is not your friend, right? It's not going to help you define race.
Yep.
It's a nice, interesting story, but actually, if you put us all on a plot, the whole world, it would just be one big blurred something and people wouldn't fit into these distinct groups. So we can't say that there was a test that was going to help us to come up with this. So what are the other ways that we think about who we are, what our culture is, what Black means to us, and how we want to protect that, how we want to gatekeep it, when we should and who we should. And I think it's the exact same kind of conversation. It's one that I've been challenged as a girl that's raised in an Afrocentric Rastafarian household, but then is interested in science and genetics. How do I still stand firm on, but I'm a proud Black woman? What does Black mean to me? And so all of those other things, histories and cultures and food, oral histories, stories that have been passed down, these are the things that I protect and hold and define me as a Black woman. That means that I might not be so open to swirling, because those are the things that I value.
Yeah, 100%. Again, are you listening, guys? All right, then. You're dumb.
I'm about to cough.
You want some more water?
I got lots.
All right, good.
How does it not become very difficult to kind of protect those things that you kind of mentioned if there are no lines to say this is ours and this is theirs?
Absolutely. And I think it requires broader thinking about the nuances within our groups and who we are. That what I mean when I say I'm Black, what I mean when I say I'm a Black Londoner, what I mean when I say I'm a diasporan from Jamaica, what I mean when I, like, all of those things are different in different spaces at different times.
Yeah.
And I can own all of them and be okay with all of them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm not in the group. Like, so, you know, sometimes the bit of the culture that needs to be protected, I'm not actually part of that culture. And so I can support you as somebody who has been racialized in the same way, has a similar journey. We understand each other, and I can be behind here supporting you. But it's to amplify your voice in that conversation. And sometimes I find a lot in kind of growing up in London and stuff, it has changed who is allowed to be the amplified voice of the Black community. And that in itself can also kind of cause problems as well. So it can be challenging, but also there's a difference between gatekeeping individually, having boundaries and values and things that you do individually and that you do at scale. And sometimes they can't always be the same thing. And that's why I guess I'm not challenged, because I stand on that ownership as a person, and then it doesn't cause me those challenges in that way. But when you start to think at scale, yes, it does become challenging. And then that's why we end up in these very heated, complex debates, because now what we're talking about is how do we do that as a group? But then you have to define who is the group.
Exactly. So this may be a silly question, but long term, if you could just decide like this, what would you say is best for us to kind of unify under the banner of being Black, or maybe to be more specific? Because again, like somebody mentioned before about Jewish people and how they're able to gatekeep, because everyone knows what it means to be a Jew, at least a European Jew of a European Jewish descent, right? What does it mean to be Black? Like, you've got people out there who are like 8th Black, 7/8 European, and want to sit down and tell me, yeah, but I'm Black too. Like, me personally, I can't have that conversation with you.
Yeah,
I can't, right? I just can't, because that's foolishness to me. Right? But there's some people who entertain it, especially in America.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, it's a political thing.
Yeah.
So how then do we actually come to some sort of consensus that makes sense, so that we can actually focus that energy and bring about real solutions?
Because I did so well in the quiz, you think I got answers, innit? So I would say that I lean on, as I said, the fact that I grew up in a Rastafarian household with values of Pan-Africanism.
Yes.
And so why am I going to get radical on the people's thing? So I think when you lean on that, when you lean on kind of those more concrete ideologies about what it means to unify based on kind of history and experience, economics, like all of those things, like tangible things, then you can lay claim to, okay, yeah, actually I am from a people that experience this story and need this and are experiencing the world in this way, are experiencing being colonized in this way. Like, so I feel like you have to talk about concrete experiences, because then if you start telling me that you're one something, and then I'm like, okay, tell me your story, and your story aligns in no way with the story that I know of people who have the shared experience of me, that's the divide. Like, that's the dividing line, because how you have experienced education, how you've experienced healthcare, how you've experienced policing, how you've, like, all of those things are a different story to me based on how you've been racialized. And I think that that's an easier way to think about it. And it would, and you know, and there may be people who do look completely different to me, but actually have that same story. So I feel as though we need something a bit more political. And we used to have that in the UK, right? We used to have politically Black. And we had so much power when we had that. And then it became black and brown and this and that and whatever, and BAME, and it all just kind of gets like diluted and lost, because that political radicalism that went behind that identity is the bit that we, you know, shy away from because it's not nice.
Makes sense to me.
We're very accommodating, aren't we?
Oh man, we are, man. This is why. Let me behave. But let me stop
there's
there.
another question in there. It feels like.
Well, what I was going to ask you is, I agree, right? In terms of the experience, I think that is actually a good way, because obviously, like, if you're not sharing the same experiences as me, then how the hell can you talk about the things I'm talking about? And why would you even be as invested? You can tell me you're as invested.
Yeah.
You might have people like, what's her name? I can't remember her name now. The white woman that wrote White Fragility. Brent? Is it Robin Walker?
I didn't read that book.
I know the book.
Yeah. So she would obviously come across like, oh yeah, I'm fully invested.
Sure.
Let's tell, this, that, and the third. But her experience would never be the same as ours.
No.
But then you may get, and this is where I think the difficulty comes. You'll get mixed race people who won't necessarily have the experience as us, but have some sort of an experience, and then say, okay, cool. I'm sensitive to the fact that I'm not as dark as you, so this, that, and the third. But then you get some of us in the community who say, well, but you're not exactly like us. So they feel a bit left out.
Yeah.
But then some people on a different day say, no, you're part of us.
Yeah.
And so it's like, who's deciding this? And this is why it kind of goes back to the whole appropriation thing. Because who is the authority that says this is the line? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. And I feel like other races, or I shouldn't even say other races, but other groups, again, like the Jewish community, for example, they don't have this issue.
Yeah. It's very different for groups that are based on faith.
This is it.
So, the Jewish community is huge. There are so many different types of Eastern European ones in Israel, ones in America, people who just have one grandparent who was in Auschwitz. But you can just use the word Jewish and people kind of know what that means. Yeah. And that's partly because of the same political history that actually very early on, people started to see them as a different race. And somehow they have transformed that. I think it's quite, I don't know, not disingenuous. What's the word? I think we should be not so hard on ourselves because that is part of the experience. Yeah. The fact that it is so fragmented and difficult is exactly part of the experience. And so those are the things that we actually need to embrace and talk about. Like, this is actually part of what it means to be Black. Yeah. This is why our mental health is higher. This is why it's harder to mobilize. This is why our businesses struggle. Because that experience of finding it hard to unify is because you're a people who were divided and conquered. And so you can't heal that by just blaming yourself that it is that way. I think we need to acknowledge it a lot more. I think we can talk about it a lot more. And the thing I also wanted to say is, if you really understand it, you don't have any problem stepping back when you need to step back. And also, if you haven't had that experience, as we are very aware of, there are people who look exactly like us who have not experienced life in the same way and are not for our interests. So again, when we're talking about drawing these lines, this is another reason why I think that your physical appearance, your kinfolk and your skinfolk, they're not always the same thing. That's why I don't know if that's a really solid ground to stand on. And I've met unproblematic white people who, because they understand that, can quite happily say, you know what, I have some of this because, somebody was from Trinidad back in the day, but actually that's not my space. And so, I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering you.
You are. I fully understand what you're saying. And it makes perfect sense. Somebody has asked a question.
Wait a minute. Let me just run through a few
Genetics
questions. Just so you're aware, everybody in the chat, if you want your question to be featured, please at the day after TNB and then follow it up with your question so I can actually see it. I've done a little searchy, and the first one is this.
Okay, so Brent, can you ask her if she works with GSST?
Yes.
What's GSST?
Guys in St. Thomas's Hospital.
Oh, okay.
Did somebody know me?
Right.
How old are these questions? 'Cause I think she's touched on them already, innit? Can you ask about incest, please?
We spoke a little bit about that, didn't we?
Why does it affect some more than others?
Okay. Oh, okay. I think that's a different question. Okay. I think I know what that question is. So I spoke about genetically why incest is a problem when you have these runs of DNA that are exactly the same. But how closely related you need to be for that to be an issue. So we're talking about very closely related. So that's what incest would be defined as legally.
Okay.
Because some communities are less accepting of cousin marriages, we define those as incest when genetically speaking or legally speaking, they wouldn't be described as incest because genetically speaking, the amount of diversity between cousins means that there actually isn't a problem with cousins having children unless they have a pre-existing genetic condition in the family. Remember I said, like, if you've got sickle cell in your community, you're more likely to meet another person that has a sickle cell trait and have a sickle cell child. Well, if you're cousins, it's like being in a small population. So it's not that it's about being cousins. It's that you're more likely to have the same genetic condition because you're from the same group of people. So that is an increased risk, but not that high. So everybody has like an increased risk of a genetic condition of about 3%.
Okay.
Just generally walking around. So I carry about 3 or 4 serious genetic conditions. And by chance, I might meet somebody who carries the same thing, and that would be the risk. Everybody has that.
Okay.
If I married my cousin, like a first cousin or a second cousin, I'm probably doubling the risk, which sounds huge when you say double, but what we're talking about is going from 2 to 4 or 3 to 6. So the reason that it's different in different populations is there will be social reasons why some populations have intermarried within family groups or clan groups. And those will often be about for like economic reasons, for so like keeping money within families. There'll be like, because maybe they're from agricultural kind of places where you need as many people working on the land as possible and to keep the land in the family. And so there are often social reasons why those have become accepted ways of having family. You're from very small villages and not many people have the same faith or culture as you. And so you tend to stick together. And so as time has moved on, those reasons are probably not as important anymore. But culturally, we all hang on to traditions that we used to do. And we don't have the reason anymore, but we, as Black people, we know that we're still hanging on to the tradition and we don't need to do that anymore. So I think a lot of cultures still do that they see it as a really important part of their culture because they've always done it traditionally. But those values of those needs of kind of economics and farming and keeping money in the like maternal line and all of those things are probably not as important anymore. But no, incest, absolutely. I think across the board is just incest. But cousin marriages, like distant cousin marriages, genetically, it's not so much of an issue. And socially, it just is accepted differently across different populations.
Because I remember a friend of mine, she's Fulani, right?
Yeah.
And she was basically telling me how in her family, cousins, you know what I'm saying? Nothing happens. So,
No,
exactly.
It's a pre-existing problem. And a lot of the times, that's how we find a genetic condition in a family. Is so when I've worked with patients, somebody will come with a very rare like genetic condition. Like sometimes we've seen like really horrible genetic conditions where children, you know, don't live very long, have really severe kind of mental and physical disabilities. And it's such an unusual condition. And then you do the family history and you're like, oh, actually, like 2 or 3 generations back, there were siblings up there and the branches, but they've carried that same genetic trait because it came from the same person. But then what that gives us is the power to then go to the rest of the family and say, in your family in particular, even though this is a rare condition in the rest of the world, it's actually quite common in your family. And then we can offer testing to everybody in the family. So everybody in the family would know whether they carry that or not. And some people would and some people wouldn't. And then they would know that actually, if I want to lower the risk, I would need to marry somebody who's either not from my family, like not a cousin, or where we've both been tested and we kind of know that we don't. So sometimes it's once we know about it, it can be managed. Yeah.
Right, next one.
Does her family have Cuban roots? Just making the assumption from your last name.
From the Henriques surname. So the history of the Henriques surname is Jewish.
Okay.
Portuguese.
Shalom.
Jewish Portuguese in Spain and Portugal. In order to escape persecution, the Jewish community changed their name from a Jewish sounding name to a Portuguese sounding name. Henriques, or Henriques as they say there, was the first king of Portugal. Wow. And so this group of Jewish settlers there, as a lot of Jewish people did at the time. So this is what, when we talk about what does it mean to be Jewish, so they changed their name. And then they explored. And so they explored across kind of South America and the Caribbean. And so some of them in about the 18th century. landed in Jamaica. So Cuba and Jamaica are very close, so it doesn't surprise me that there will be some in Cuba as well as some in Jamaica.
Wow.
And so in Jamaica, you know, the 21 families that rule Jamaica, Henriques is one of them, because very early on they were money lenders, so they have a lot of economic power in Jamaica. And we all look different. So Sean Paul is a Henriques.
Okay.
And so there are some Henriqueses that don't look like this. And they tend to be the ones that have the power. And then there are some Henriqueses like me. If there's any Henriqueses out there from St. Anne's, then I'm your family. Because there aren't very many of us.
Okay.
So somehow we are either related to each other or related to those very first Henriqueses that came to the region. They weren't like, it's not the same as being like a Brown or where they were like huge plantations. They were small groups of people in the Caribbean.
Are these Sephardic Jews?
Sorry, yes.
Okay.
Sephardic Jews.
Okay. Interesting. Brent, okay, not sure if I already asked, but what was her educational journey to get to where she is?
We did talk about it, but I could talk a little bit more. No?
No, if we've done it already.
We did it.
Jay, you may have to rewind, you know.
Yep.
Sorry. Just how can we best advocate for ourselves when we're likely to require these genetic tests?
Absolutely.
Even as common as sickle cell is, the NHS still hesitate to test genotype.
So my work kind of falls into like 3 big areas because of my experience. So the first was that I knew I was like the only black woman in my profession for so many years. And I thought it would be different when I left the country and I went to South Africa and it was the same. So a lot of my work is about just being visible, and if there are young people out there who are like, I love science, but I want to work with patients, but I don't want to be a doctor, but like there are other positions. So part of my advocacy for us is to show that there are all spaces we can be in and excel in. So that's one thing.
All right.
The other thing that was really troubling for me was the access that patients have to this amazing service that I think that I'm delivering. And so some of that is about knowing what you are entitled to. Okay. So genetic counselling is a free NHS service that your GP must refer you to if you meet particular criteria or you have particular worries.
Okay.
If they have questions that you have questions that they cannot answer or are not answering adequately. Like I heard Sasha talk about sickle cell and you're telling me this and then you're telling me I don't need to do that. That's wrong. Okay. And so impress on them that actually, even just to talk, I would like to talk to a genetic counsellor, you must refer me. So there is kind of just that self-advocacy kind of for yourself. Also, there are great kind of support groups and charity groups. I spoke about kind of sickle cell society, thalassemia society. So there are lots of organised groups. There's another group, a group of young people, I can't remember what they're called, who organise around their condition and support and advocacy, and they will help you as well.
Okay.
There are also advocacy places that you can go to. So you can kind of ask Citizens Advice Bureau, and some of them are kind of African Caribbean specific kind of advocacy people who will go with you to appointments or help you kind of get through kind of situations as well. So the help is there if you are struggling to be heard or to get through. But it's hard to find us because there aren't always very many of us. But if you go to the support group for your condition, they'll probably be able to help you signpost to the right place that could help you.
Okay, thank you for that. Hope everyone took note.
Next one is... Oops. Not that one, this one.
All right. Can you ask Sasha if she subscribes to post-traumatic slave syndrome being passed down through DNA?
Yes. So there's lots of so one of the first fathers of epigenetics was a black professor as well, and so a lot of people, there's been kind of this, I don't know, misadvertising that real scientists don't believe in epigenetics, and it's a whole area of study. I know scientists that kind of do that work, so it is completely accepted that the first bit of investigation that we did, remember I said we don't have all the answers. The first bit of investigation that we did on what genes do and what their function are was of a very small part of the genome that we could actually kind of test and analyse. And then actually there's like these huge other bits of the genome that we called at the time kind of junk DNA, and then we started calling it non-coding DNA, and then we realised that actually there's stuff going on in all these other bits that are related to the code but aren't the code themselves. So there's huge branches of science that is about understanding what happens in that bit. And then there are other types of science that also think about what are the things that we inherit that are not just through the DNA, and how does that happen? So there's a branch of science that's called kind of neuroplasticity, which is about how the brain can kind of change based on the conditions that the mother was in. There are branches of science that are about kind of the microbiome, so about the type of microbiology and bacteria that might exist in somebody's like fetal tract. And so when you have a baby, like what
comes out with,
what is the composition of what they're exposed to, and how does that change their immunity? How does it change, like all of those things? So there's so much to be discovered that's not just about this wonderful code that we kind of figured out. And so I think that post-traumatic slave syndrome is one of the things that we have one way of describing it, but there will be other ways that it is actually being visualized and described in accepted science that actually is just a reflection of exactly what you're talking about. That what can happen to somebody that can actually get passed on, that you can't pick up in the DNA code itself, but it might be somewhere else in these other bits of DNA that we're trying to characterize, or something else about kind of the chemical way that we kind of pass on things through generations. So I think it's a fascinating kind of area, and more will be discovered about what these huge traumatic events in populations actually do for generations going forward.
I'm glad you mentioned this, because I do want to ask you, do you feel like this is, tell me if I'm reaching, or is this a similar thing that you're talking about, where if you go back to African traditions, for example, or even just the way us as in 2024 kind of communicate certain things, we may be talking about certain things in such a layman's way, right? And obviously, we kind of label that person as a pseudo-scientist, as just chatting rubbish. But really, there's science behind it.
Absolutely.
But we just don't know how to
unpick it.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think one of your contributors spoke about the Adinkra symbols.
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. This guy's crazy. Oh my.
Adinkra syndrome.
Yes. So one of your guests was talking about Adinkra symbols and the hidden mathematics that's kind of hidden in those things. And so I think absolutely, layman isn't a term that I like to use. And so I think going into this area, I said like communication is my thing. And so people have this idea that I understand the really scientific parts, and then I can turn it into layman's terms so the other person, these are just different languages. And so I think that people who study kind of linguistics and language have a lot of the answers for these, there needs to be like this merging of all the different kind of disciplines. So actually understanding language and storytelling, I think, is a really important way to kind of understand kind of how science, maths and technology is woven through kind of different communities. So there's a way that I talk about, being passed on in families and inheritance that's based on a genetic framework. And just like physics, that's in a context. In a different context, like a Native American context, how you talk about inheritance is completely different because it's a different context. And it doesn't mean you don't understand inheritance. It just means in a different language and a different framework, there are different ways of talking about things. And the art and the beauty of, I think, what I am doing when I'm talking to my patients is finding the connections between those things so that we can then move forward with kind of more knowledge and understanding. There's like kind of a humility. So I teach a lot in the very undiverse community that I work in. I teach a lot around kind of cultural competence and cultural humility. And this is one of the important things, is this very white dominated thinking that you have all the knowledge and no one else has anything that you need to learn is one of the biggest things that we need to break down, even as academics who have been trained in a Eurocentric way. That's really hard for even us to kind of decolonize our own mind into thinking about what are higher forms of knowledge and what are lower forms of knowledge.
See, Brent, this is why I always say, when we get into those discussions about mythology and stuff, and I said to me, myth is real. You know what I'm saying? Because it's that same thing. Like, it may sound all supernatural and stuff, but there's something that's being transmitted that's a real thing. It's true, but it's just not explained, I guess, in a scientific
Interesting.
tangible way.
Yet I asked you if it's time to talk about Terence, and you said
No, Terence
absolutely.
Harrod. No, because
Terence! I just realised he was talking
Exactly.
about
Can you imagine?
Terence.
Thank you.
No, we're not doing it.
Look at Sasha's reaction. Look at Sasha's
We were
reaction.
having a serious conversation and
Thank
bringing
you.
up Terence.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you.
Talk to me.
1 times
About
1
Terence.
equals 2.
Talk to me.
About Terence.
Talk to me.
Why am I talking about Terence for?
Thank you.
Wow, you see how you've jumped out? The code switching is gone.
I know.
God,
because
because
you said Terence.
thank you.
Sorry. Is
Because
there a
the
scientific
academics
question
among
about-
us don't deal with foolishness.
All right. Because of the first 1 + 1 is that's when he's like, I'm switching him off. Nothing else matters. Nothing else. All right, okay. I see where.
Terence didn't have nothing to say for himself, so
Thank
we ain't
you.
got nothing to say for Terence.
Thank
So
you.
wait.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Sasha,
Yes.
I love you.
Yes.
Love you.
Yes.
Did you watch all the interviews of
Which-
late?
The interviews of Terence.
Yes.
No.
You think
There
she
we
wa-
go.
do
All
you
right.
think she wasted time?
That's right. We need to continue
No.
the conversation. So she didn't know what I'm talking about. You didn't even know the reference point in which
Brent,
it is.
Brent, get it off your chest. What is it?
No. He sat down with Joe Rogan
Yes.
a couple times.
Yes.
And the second time, he had a mathematician,
Okay.
Eric Weinstein, I believe his name is,
Okay.
come and sit down next to him
Sure.
to basically sift through some of his ideas.
Okay.
Right? And in that explosive conversation, right?
Yeah.
Eric basically said, hey, this one thing, hey, this might be genius. And I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay. So there is a phrase that my mother taught me. Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
100%.
So absolutely, we can
And
always
if this
pick sense.
one
We can always
thing
pick sense
can
out of
help
nonsense.
humanity,
We can always pick sense
if
out
this
of nonsense.
one thing can help humanity, right? This broken clock, use it, right?
But we still need to agree that it's broken. So we just give it the space it deserves.
Question. Your introduction to Terence, I don't know where you coming from,
Yeah.
right? Why did you retort when I mentioned his name? Like, let me know. Because I don't know your introduction to him.
No, it's not a very deep introduction.
Go on.
That's it. Like it's
That's
just
it?
not, that's it.
All right,
Like,
so
it's
what
just-
have you seen
I
of
just
Terence that
felt
has
like
you
it didn't-
saying,
it
no,
just
I'm not
felt like it
entertaining
didn't-
any other
It
conversation?
just felt like it didn't fit within the conversation.
Oh, it definitely did, because you were there saying there are different ways to basically
Okay.
tell the truth.
Okay,
That's
sure,
what you were saying.
sure,
There's
but-
conventional science,
But
conventional
we've
math,
agreed-
and then there's things that exist outside of it. He just said that.
But we've agreed on
myth
that
is
now.
Myth doesn't mean it's not real. That's what he just said. So I said,
Terence is not
are
talking
you
myth.
gingering me? Are you asking for permission for me to enter the conversation and drop
No,
Terence?
but we agree now.
I saw so many signs.
We agree now. We agree now.
Yeah, we agree.
We agree now. Sorry, Brent.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I enjoy this. Don't worry.
I feel so bad.
I have something for you, right?
Sure.
I have something for you. Let me shake the table a tiny bit, right? Here we go. Amanda, can you
gosh.
read this up, please?
All right. Can you ask Sasha what her view on the science behind the COVID vaccine?
Yeah.
I know this isn't her specific area, so feel free to ignore.
No problem. I can answer what I think most people's question was.
Okay.
Like, how did they come up with one so quickly and blah, blah, blah.
And how effective it
Maybe,
is.
and how effective
yeah.
it was and kind of all of that stuff. So I think the first thing to say is a lot of how pharmaceuticals get to market, like how long things take, is not about the science itself. It's about the bureaucracy around it getting there.
Okay.
So I know the speed was uncomfortable for people, but one of the things that explained that speed is that it was about to be an economical disaster, and the bureaucracy that normally makes people money had to be sidestepped in order to bring something quicker. And the reason that it could be brought quickly was because a lot of the fundamental science, like the RNA science around how the vaccines work, had been done for decades before. So we weren't dealing with experimental in that sense, in that, you know, it's the mode at which those vaccines could work had kind of already been proven. The other thing that was really challenging, which is the same as I've been saying, and is the same for lots of medicines and lots of research, is who we do the research on. Means that we get information about how effective things might be, what might work, what might not work. So there's a big branch of research which is called like pharmacogenomics, which is about how different medicines work in different populations based on their genetic makeup. If we're in a system where the most diverse groups of people are under-researched in terms of their genomics, it has a knock-on effect on whether we know the efficacy of things in that group of people or whether we are assuming the same efficacy based on the ones that we've already done. And so that is just a universal problem with lots of things. So I completely understand the hesitancy of different populations to be like, I'm not sure if you know how effective this will be in my group because you haven't necessarily studied it in my group. We have absolute 100% concrete reasons to be distrustful of Western medicine and research and how it has treated Black bodies. That makes us hesitant to enter research, but it means that it compounds the problem that we then are under-researched, and then that leads to the disparity, and then again that leads to the mistrust, and then we don't enter the research. So I know that it's a challenging and difficult conversation, but I, for one, sometimes am of the position that I'm like, well, I'm going to go and do this thing because actually, if we don't get more information, we're never going to be equally treated at all because it's a vacuum about what that is for us. And again, we need to respect the fact that we have African scientists, Black scientists, like in the game who can explain these things to you. So again, sometimes this jump that we have to distrust an entire institution is absolutely right. But trust is usually based on an individual. So sometimes trying to seek out those individuals who can help you come to some personal understanding. And I know that that helped a lot of people that I kind of know. So no, I'm not a virologist or a vaccine kind of expert, but those are probably some of the conversations that I had around that at that time. So
how many jabs do you get?
How many jabs? Quite a few because I'm a health worker. So I was there and I was going into hospital. And I had serious illness twice. And I was like, well, either the COVID's going to take me out or the vaccine. Like, what is, like, what? And I'm exposing myself to the COVID every day. So, like, let me give myself a running chance. And I had absolutely no problems. And I've never had any real symptoms from it at all. So yeah, it was a difficult time, innit, to like make decisions. It was a really kind of pragmatic decision, different to different people in my family. But it's kind of hard without doing it and then looking back 10 years later to actually see what the true effect of some of those things were. So you need, which is another reason that pharmaceuticals sometimes take a long time to come to market, is those studies over time, those longitudinal studies, sometimes they want to do those before they go to market. And so we kind of had to change the rules slightly because of the dramatic situation. And so it may take a little while before we kind of flesh all of that stuff out. But absolutely, like, myths about it targeting us and like all of those kind of things. I'm sorry to use your word, myths. But having looked into it, some of those things were just not true. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for the comprehensive answer.
Is that way of saying lang?
No, not at all. Good morning, Ramsey. You want to ask the question before you head out?
Yeah, morning. How's everyone doing?
Blessed and how do you feel? Thank you.
Good. Hi, Sasha. I just wanted to ask, hopefully you haven't touched on it before and I missed it, but I just wanted to ask about your experience dealing with patients who have the BRCA1 mutation.
Oh, okay. I spoke about it briefly. Have you finished your question? Sorry.
No, that was it pretty much. And like what advice you would give them, especially in regards to having children. For those who don't know, BRCA1 mutation, especially for women, gives them a higher chance of having breast cancer, triple negative breast cancer to be specific, which affects mostly people of color. But yeah, just wanted you to expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah, no problem. So I did speak about it briefly, but I didn't mention BRCA1. We spoke about cancers having particular risk, and I spoke about some genetic changes might give you an increased risk of kind of breast or ovarian cancer. So my experience in a genetic clinic is that I will either meet women who are already diagnosed and in their cancer treatment, because of the type of cancer, it raises, and the age that they've had the cancer often, it raises questions about whether there was a genetic cause for their breast cancer. And so they may come with a diagnosis and get tested at the same time.
Okay.
And then I then take care of them in terms of the genetics while oncology kind of looks after the cancer. And so then we talk about the other risks that might be associated with the cancer. So we talk about kind of diet and lifestyle. We talk about different types of chemo prevention and when they might want to get information. We talk about surgery. So we talk about options of prophylactic surgery. So that's breast or ovarian surgery to remove the risk and kind of counsel people through those choices about those things. And then we also talk about testing in the family to see if other people are carriers of that genetic condition. That testing happens from the age of 18 because the condition in women, the age of onset is kind of late 20s, early 30s. So we feel that adults should be able to have that conversation themselves to know whether they would want the test because of the implications. And so sometimes I talk to women before the cancer who have had the test, but then they still have those options available to them. So they never have to experience cancer if they may choose to kind of have these decisions. We also speak to men because just because it affects women, it's because women have the bits that the gene affects, but men also have the genetic change, but they don't have breasts or ovaries. So they have, so we do talk to men about BRCA1 testing as well. Often they'll come to us when their daughters are becoming of age and then they'll want to know about themselves. And often, you know, you'll be a man in a family of other women who are affected. So again, when I talk about the genetic counselling is not just about the medicine, it's about the shock, the pain, the guilt, like all of the feelings that go along with having the genetic condition. Sometimes I just talk to people, there's no test involved. We're just talking about the experience of having a genetic condition in your family and what further support you might want to help you with that. Like, is it financial? Is it social work? Do you need further counselling, you know, actual therapeutic counselling to talk about that? So I would say that anybody with a genetic condition, whether you've had it, had a test, someone at risk is at it, you know, a genetic counsellor is to speak to anyone who is affected by a genetic condition. That doesn't mean you personally have it. It means that it's affected your family in some ways. And we have very kind of holistic, family-centric kind of thinking about genetic conditions as well. Ramsey, was that what you wanted?
Yeah, I appreciate the clarity. Unfortunately, I'm speaking from experience because my sister passed away from triple negative breast cancer.
Sorry.
And we only found out after that that genetic mutation is hereditary and it's within our family. So yeah, I just wanted a little bit more light shone on it, and I wanted to repeat your point about pushing for your GP to put you through the genetic test, and because everyone I dealt with in the genetic team has been very supportive, and they're very, very quick with their comms. So yeah, just to push through that. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Sasha.
No, thank you for sharing and thank you for, you know, supporting that message as well. Get what you're entitled to and looked after in the way that you need to be. Yeah.
Thank you, Ramsey.
100%. Thank you.
We'll be seeing you on Thursday, right?
Bless. Come on.
All right, then.
All right, love. Peace.
All right.
Last question before we answer the last 3 questions.
Yes. Are there any social cultural practices that you've observed that alter genetics, i.e., does smoking weed affect individual genetic psychosis that can be passed down to their children?
It's a hard question to answer because I would never see a family for long enough to know if these things are, if these things happen. It's really, psychiatric genetics is a really interesting kind of field. So for a long time, the more, I guess, physical genetic issues were the things that were kind of studied in terms of like clinically and the tests and all of those types of things. But there is a branch, particularly a researcher that I know in Canada, who've been doing kind of pushing lots of work around kind of understanding psychiatric genetics a bit more. So what are the genes that can affect, how do we understand family histories when we see them, and what are the other things that kind of add to that. What I would say about psychiatric genetics and the way that I tend to explain it to patients is that if you think of yourself as a glass, and we are all born inherently with things in the glass. And so some people's glass will be kind of only half full, and other people's glass would kind of already be at the top because you not only have family members who might have had a genetic like psychiatric condition that has some genetic component, so that's added into your glass, but also you've had the experience of living in a family that has been affected by psychiatric conditions. And we spoke about like post-traumatic slavery syndrome and all of these things. So these are already mean that you're born with this glass that is a little bit fuller than other people's glass. And then things happen to you in life. So we know that for some people, there is kind of psychosis-induced marijuana use. For some people, there'll be other things that are like additive things that we're putting in this glass. So if you know you were already born with a glass that might be a little bit more full, it might not be wise for you to add extra things in your glass, because once that glass tips over, then we're talking about like a psychiatric episode or but then there are things that are protective of your glass too, right? So then we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about healthy eating, we're talking about exercise, we're talking about diet. So sometimes it's not any different than me drawing the family tree and being like, he was cancer, there was like, we can do that ourselves. You can look at your family, and whether it's mental health or whether it's diabetes, like things that don't have great tests or information, but you've already got some information about, actually, for me, maybe I need to have a slightly different lifestyle because maybe my glass is a little bit more full in this respect than somebody else's glass might be, you know, more full in another respect. So I can't answer that specifically. There's lots of research still going on about it, but definitely for all conditions, we know that different things will increase the risk. If you know you've got a family history of cancer, maybe smoking's not for you.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you very much for answering that. Like Brent was saying, because we do kind of have to wrap up, unfortunately. And I hope you do come back, man, because we've got so many different things.
Sure.
She'll be back.
100%. Yes. But yes, last few questions that we ask every guest, right? Tell us something that people usually are surprised to learn about you.
I mean, my job is so weird that I think I think most people don't even know it exists. What else? I was play carnival in full costume.
Okay.
You seem surprised, so that was a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. What's your biggest life lesson?
My biggest life lesson. Let it go and let live.
Okay. I hear that. Let it go and let live. And the last question, typically we ask every guest to answer the questions that a previous guest has given them, right?
Oh, okay.
And so we're going to ask you to ask a question.
And then I'll give a question.
Exactly,
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
so the question from the last person is, and this is from Travis J, by the way.
Okay.
As your journey goes forward, what are you doing to protect your mind, body, and spirit on the way?
I think I touched on that just briefly, didn't I? About the glass and the things that we do. So I'm definitely a meditator. I am definitely someone who tries to be mindful. I am someone who limits alcohol and meat at certain times, kind of in the week or in the month. And I am a joyful person. So essentially, my biggest asset, I think, at my resilience through life has been my ability to laugh from the soles of my feet and dance like nobody's looking. Like I'm just a joyful person, and I just try to keep manifesting that joy where I can, and that has protected me.
Which ties into what Sace was saying, isn't it, Brent? Joy, just being able to experience joy is the highest form of resistance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Black power, man. Black power.
Go, here for it.
All right, man. Thank you so much, Sasha, for coming. Again, like Brent says, you need to come back again.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
She'll be back.
All right. So,
wait. You first of all, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And
I didn't ask that question.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, as in to leave a question for the next person.
Ah, sorry.
Oh, gosh, I'm under pressure because that was a very, very deep question. What kind of... And I don't know who the guest is going to be either, do I? So what question would I ask? I think I want to ask that question about identity because it has been such a big question for me. So how do you tie together the different fabrics of your existence to give you a strong sense of identity.
Okay. I like that.
Like a lot. All right, we've given that X moment of silence. Cambridge, you said you wanted to talk just a few words about Cambridge. And obviously, I know you through Chike, innit? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you meet?
We're both PhD students at Cambridge.
All right.
So
collectors, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you will not be surprised to know that there aren't an abundance of black people at Cambridge. And so I met Chike when Sir Simon Woolley, who is the first black dean of a Cambridge university, he holds a Black History Month ball once a year, and all black students are invited to this ball, and he brings all his like mover and shaker black friends. And it's just like nice for as students to kind of meet people who are like, oh, I started the first offshore oil rig in Nigeria and stuff. So we all just schmooze around, and he has kind of special guests. And Naomi Campbell was the guest last year, and Chike was on my table. Nice. So he was on the table in front of me.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I was just on a table with people, had a nice conversation, and then a lot of the...
I was there at that time. I didn't see you.
I looked amazing, so I don't know. It's probably because I look so plain now, but I pulled out stops. People told me Naomi was coming there with some bubble braids with gold and a big red dress.
Swirling around.
Swirling. I thought I was the queen. Anyway, I met Chike that day, and then we just stayed in contact. So we have, so not only like Cambridge and PhD alignments, but obviously because I'm a soca girl and he's from Trinidad, and and I make a good rum punch. So we just stayed in contact. Yeah.
Amazing. And your thoughts?
My thoughts on Cambridge. Yeah. Well, I'm an East London girl from a Rasta family, so charting down Babylon has kind of been my whole life. So I always like to impress on people. I never woke up and begged Cambridge nothing. I lived my life. I walked in my divine purpose. I held my values true. And the reason I am at Cambridge is because of the work I was already doing. And somebody contacted to say that there was a research fellowship that was about the things she had heard me already speak on, and would I be interested in applying? And that happened to be hosted with Welcome Connect in Science and Cambridge. And so there are great things about Cambridge, but there are challenging things about the institutions that we have to live in and navigate. And so I have those challenges personally and professionally. And so I have never embedded or acculturated myself with Cambridge. That's all I want to say now.
Amazing. Thank you.
I hear you, man.
Thank you very much.
Man. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Headlines.
Last headlines. Don't worry, people should be back. All right.
All right, people. So last set of headlines, trigger warning on this one, people. Sir Ed Davey has said that he's sceptical of the case for a sister dying in the UK, but agreed that MPs should be given a free vote on the issue. So the Lib Dem leader, speaking from the party's annual conference in Brighton, speaking to Sky News' deputy political editor, Sam Coates, and said that MPs must listen to all sides of a debate and deeply and carefully consider the outcome. He called on members of the Commons not to rush a vote and suggested that a decision shouldn't be taken before Christmas. MPs could vote on whether to introduce assisted dying in the UK in the coming months after Downing Street confirmed it would not obstruct a private member's bill on the subject. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has previously said that he would back a change in the law, while the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has said that she would not support a policy she described as a dangerous position to be in. Next headline, and people have started catching a new COVID variant, man. Hey, Demi.
Why are you calling
No, I'm just saying, Demi may want to queue up quick. To, you know what I mean? Demi's my guy, man. You understand? Just jokes. Big up Demi, man. People have started catching a new COVID variant that could soon take off and become the dominant type. This according to scientists, right? So identified in Germany in June, cases of the XEC variant have since emerged in the UK, in the US, Denmark, and several other countries. This is what people have been saying on X. So it has some new mutations that might help it spread this autumn. or this winter. Although vaccines should still help prevent severe cases, is what the experts are saying.
Amen.
Professor Francois Ballot, who is the director of the Genetics Institute at the University College London, speaking to BBC News, and said that although XEC has a slight transmission advantage over the other recent COVID variants, vaccines should still offer good protection. He says it is possible XEC will become the dominant subvariant over the winter, though. So you should be all right with the present one. But if you want the booster, then you know what I mean. And the last headline, the 2024 Booker Prize shortlist has been announced, with the largest number of women represented in its 55-year history. Big up the women.
All the time.
Mm-hmm. 5 of the 6 strong shortlist are women, with authors from 5 countries represented, including the Netherlands for the first time. The list includes former Women's Prize winner Anne Michaels, American writer Percival Everett, and British author Samantha Harvey. Each shortlist author receives £2,500 as the winner. And the winner, announced on the 12th of November, is going to be winning £50,000. The prestigious prize is open to works of fiction written in English by authors anywhere in the world and published in the UK or Ireland. And that's it for our headlines. Time to pay the bills.
Sasha, somebody's asking if you're going to be attending the next party at the Ned on the 27th, because they want to buy you a couple gin and tonics whilst talking about jeans.
Am I attending?
You're invited.
Thank you. I'll attend 27th of October.
Of September.
September.
Yeah.
Last Friday of the month.
Yeah.
Okay, I will be there. And please,
right.
can we make it a rum and not a gin?
All right, then.
There we go. And you can bring a couple friends if it is that you want to.
Thank you. I will. Thanks.
So she'll be there.
Yes.
All right.
All right, so Brent, let's go into a wrap-up.
I'll wrap up. No sports. All right.
All right, people, thank you for tuning in, of course. Today we had a brilliant show, man. Obviously, we spoke about it quite a lot today. We spoke about the junior doctors in England voting to accept the pay deal. Finally, they got their 22.3% on average over 2 years. We also spoke about Sadiq Khan now wanting prisoners to cut housing queues to stop committing crimes. So basically, long story short, he's got another idea that don't always make sense in terms of practicality. We also spoke about, trigger warning on this one as well, Huw Edwards basically leaving court, getting a 2-year suspended sentence, convicted as 6 months. He got sentenced to 6 months imprisonment, suspended for 2 years for pleading guilty to his crimes. And also we spoke about the Houthi rebels who basically fired a missile in central Israel, and Israel basically hinted at saying they're going to respond militarily. Also, we spoke about the discussion amongst MPs, which we may have to bring to the TDA community, man, about assisted dying. And if people feel like it should be something that should be brought to the UK, I think that's a very good topic to discuss, maybe this week, man. We'll see what we can do with that. And obviously, we just spoke about the women that are dominating the 2024 Booker Prize shortlist. And guys, to be woke and stay prepared, because this new XEC Covid variant is starting to spread. If you need to get a booster, go ahead, you know what I'm saying? If you just want to pray, that might do the job too. I don't know. Everyone do as they please. But last but certainly not least, I think the highlight of the show, to be fair, was our wonderful guest, Sasha, coming in. Really appreciate you coming in. Man. Tell a friend. Listen to this episode, man. I think that entire interview, everything you mentioned, is so apt for everything that we're going through, man. And I think we need more people like yourself having that passion in that same field, man, so that we can actually change our reality in a practical way. You know what I'm saying? So yes, thank you once again for coming.
Danielle said it was a favourite episode so far.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Big up Danielle,
Blessings, thank you.
She's our co-founder, by the way. The new Black co-founder. Yeah.
Yes. So people, hope you have a blessed day. See you guys tomorrow, man. Same time. Peace.